No, not if you know what you're doing. Oh, knock.
Knock on the window.
Oh.
We're gonna start.
Knock 3 times.
You didn't break it, did you?
I actually saw him back there.
We are going to go ahead and call the Wednesday, June 10th, 2015 meeting of the Resource Management and Administration Committee to order. Please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Max Bauer,
Here.
Lathrop,
Yep.
Johnson,
Here.
Crawford,
Here.
Klaus,
Here.
Kropa.
Here. Were there any changes to the minutes at all? They will stand approved as presented. First public comment, Bonnie.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4, Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
Is there any member of the public that wishes to make comment at this time? Feel free to step on up. So what do we do for microphone?
She can, why don't you come over here and
She can use yours. There we
One of
go.
ours, yeah.
This one's not plugged in.
Okay.
That's hard.
There we go, that works.
Hi, I'm Donna Gerhardt at 780 Hammond Road East, Traverse City, Michigan, in East Bay Township. I'm here to address the Eastling Pool, and I have had MS for 42 years, and I've been swimming with my MS group for 38 years there. And it's been a wonderful thing to have that pool, and it has things that we cannot find anyplace else because the water's the right temperature for us, because with the MS you can't have a hot pool or else you just melt. You can't do anything. And it has an area for exercising for those that can't stand up really easily, and it has a deeper area for those that can use the deep water. And there are exercises, especially for me, that I can do in the deep area that I can't, because I can't move myself in a chair all the time. But in the water, in the deep area, I can use the spaghetti noodles and things like that and really exercise my torso and my legs, which I cannot do otherwise. And I know that I also use the very back stairway that they have there that goes up, and it has bars to go up with it. And I can put my feet under that, and I can stand up holding on to those and make my own legs work, which I cannot do. I tried the Y, and for some reason they haven't put the cut underneath far enough. I can only put my toes in this far, and I was sliding off. I can't use that the same way. But at the Civic Center, they have that there for us. And I know for the other parts of the group that I'm in, they just all really enjoy it. We have 2 people now that are in wheelchairs, and they use the lift. And they come in, and, I mean, it's just like, it's life for us. I mean, it's just the most wonderful thing. And to have that big group, because we can go from 20 to 40 people in a minute. We don't know who's going to be there. We have had people from Detroit and from Northport and even from over the Sioux that have come in, because there is no place else in Michigan that they have an MS group that exercises in the water. And it just makes such a difference for our lives to do that. And I know they have a lift at the other one, but they don't have a big enough area for our group to be in that quickly, you know, to do the exercises we have to do together. And it really makes a difference for all of us. And it's just like, to walk is wonderful, you know, in the water. So I just wanted to say that it's just a wonderful place that we've always enjoyed, and if you can help us know what we can do to help you keep it open, please let us know what we can do to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There was someone else over there that wanted to, okay, go on up to the podium there.
I'm Julie Medlin, 1232 Peninsula Drive, Traverse City, and I work with the MS people.
You gotta pull it down.
There you go.
Sorry. It's a wonderful program, and the layout is perfect. As I said, there's even an equipment room where they store extra wheelchairs and walkers, because Donna can't take that scooter through the shower, obviously. So we can get a wheelchair that can go through the shower. The program has helped so many people improve their lifestyle, and the Y just isn't as good a program. Like the water temperature is just right, and everything, the layout is good in the locker rooms. It's a marvelous program. We help many people, and that's not just us. There's lots of kids learning to swim, and seniors getting good exercise. It's a great place, and we certainly hope that will stay available to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please.
Hi, I'm Joan Send. I live at 1942 Sparrow Drive, Traverse City in East Bay Township. I've been using the pool for nearly 10 years since I was diagnosed with MS. One of the most wonderful things for me is I've discovered the more I swim, the more energy that I've gained. And therefore, one of the drugs that has been prescribed to me, I don't have to take it, and that is a real plus. Also, I do participate in the MS swim class that the other two have talked about, and truly, every time I go, I always come away walking a little bit better, and that means a lot. And I just hope that we can do something to be able to keep the pool open. The facility works great for all of us, and there's plenty of space for handicap parking, and it's just very accessible for those of us that need a little extra help.
Thank you. Anyone else at all for public comment?
Hi, my name is Cheryl Bowman. I live at 1459 Burnley Estates Drive in Traverse City. I'm here representing...
Cheryl, could you speak in the microphone? I'm
Yep.
having a little hard time hearing you. Thank you.
I'm here representing the Friends of the Easling Pool, and would like to invite each of you to the meeting to keep the pool open on Monday, June 15th at 7 o'clock in the evening at the Easling Pool Community Room. I know that some of you, or all of you, should have received an email about this meeting, and so I am just reiterating that we'd like to see you there. At that meeting, Christine Erickson, the director of the pool, will be talking about the financial statistics. She will also talk about the usership of the pool. We have a person from the Y that will be coming in to talk about cooperation between the two pools in the city and how that can be worked out. We also have a lot of user groups that I've talked to and others on the committee that seem very positive and will be there to talk about why this pool is important to their groups. I'm hoping that more than one of you, I know some of you have already said that you will attend, and so I'm hoping that one or more of you will share your thoughts during that meeting, ask questions, and then gather information as you make this final decision on our pool, since it affects so many people in our community. Thank you, and I hope to see you there.
Anyone else at all? Okay, I will close public comment. On to agenda. Do we have any changes at all from commissioners? No? Anyone from the audience or staff? Okay.
Madam Chair, I would move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support? Okay, moved by Maxbauer, support by Crawford. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, on to consent calendar.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval, is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file. Number 1, Community Corrections Report for April. Number 2, Veteran Services Report for April. Number 3, Conservation District Monthly Report. Number 4, Resource Recovery Managers Report. Number 5, Road Commission Monthly Report. Number 6, News from MSU Extension. B, Approval. Number 1, Conflict of Interest WheeLock dated May 28, 2015.
Okay, anyone from the commissioners like to pull any item? Sunny?
B1, please.
Okay. Anyone else? Audience or staff?
Madam Chair, I would move to approve the consent calendar as amended.
Support. Okay, moved by Maxbauer, support by Crawford. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? On to special orders of business. Overview of Brownfield financial impact. I'm going to guess that's Jean.
Should.
I was asked by at least one commissioner. Well, it's closest, so we didn't go on.
It's easiest for me to see.
There you got it.
Thank you.
To provide a general overview of the Brownfield program and how it's implemented. So I'm just going to take hopefully 10, 15 minutes and garner some questions from you and be able to answer those questions. First, I wanted to talk, and also I have Scott Joseph and the chairman. Scott Joseph is the vice chairman of the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. The priorities and findings of the Brownfield program when we started the Brownfield program in 1996, the priorities of the authority and the county and all of the taxing jurisdictions was to clean up the environmental that had the threats to the safety and health of the community as a whole. It was to remove barriers from development itself, and the important component as well is to assist the communities in implementing the vision of the individual communities to help with that, and that would be their master plans, and then building on that current infrastructure. The findings that we have had from the Brownfield Authority is that we've improved the environmental conditions, that we have worked on the sites, we have increased the tax revenues for all of the local taxing jurisdictions, and the economic development components of creating jobs in the construction industry, creating longer-term jobs with the new development that's coming on, and also just the spin-off projects that have been realized by the Brownfield program as well. How the Brownfield program works is really, it starts with forming the partnerships. And the partners that we have in the Brownfield is all of the taxing jurisdictions. We work with them, we talk with each of them on every single project. And we also, the bigger partner is the state of Michigan. With the state, we leverage our local dollars with state dollars and are able to implement these projects and realize the revenues on a quicker rate. The Brownfield program, when you look at how it is implemented, when you put a Brownfield plan together, the developer upfronts those eligible activities that we call, those are environmental, and then the non-environmental. But the brownfield program doesn't pay for those costs. The developer pays for those costs and waits over a period of time as the taxes increase and on that parcel that the brownfield is on, and waits for the reimbursement to occur, and that cannot exceed 30 years. The Brownfield Authority approves all of the invoices, so when you see that brownfield plan, you'll see the cost and they're broken down. Then the Brownfield Authority really gets into all of the invoices and reviews them based on the reasonableness of cost, if the cost is contained within the brownfield plan, and if it was approved by the state of Michigan and the authority as a whole. This is an example of what a brownfield is compared to a non-traditional brownfield site or a site that we call in the brownfield world a greenfield that has no barriers between getting the new development in. And on the greenfield site, there's no removal of a leaking underground storage tank. There's no demolition. There's no removal of contaminated soil. There's no need for special foundations, no dewatering, and no retaining walls. On the brownfield site, you have all of those costs, and those costs equal, in this example, $1.1 million. So that difference between building on the greenfield and building on a brownfield is the difference in what the brownfield plan would have in it, that $1.1 million. How that $1.1 million is repaid is based on the tax increment financing on that site. So in this example, the original project, the taxable value was $300,000. New development goes in, the private developer invests, and the new taxable value is $1 million. So the difference between $300,000 and $1 million is what's captured and reimbursed over a period of time to that developer. The $300,000 taxable value, the taxing jurisdictions still receive the taxes based on that $300,000. Now I want to talk about the recent successes. We have 4 projects that Grand Traverse County and all of the taxing jurisdictions have realized. That is what we call Van Wagner project, that is in Garfield Township, Copper Ridge, that's in Garfield Township, Melling-Toole, and of course the River's Edge that you'll be getting in 2016. So between 2014 and 2020, Grand Traverse County will realize new revenue coming into the general fund accumulated of $1,520,370. That's new revenue that you have not received because of this new development that's coming on to it, and that's only 5 projects that you'll be realizing, 2 in the city of Traverse City and 3 in Garfield Township. There is a question on how the brownfield is impacting the state of Michigan on the school taxes. There's an immediate benefit on the brownfield program for debt and special assessments. So in this example, I highlighted the college debt and the school debt. So the brownfield cannot capture special assessments or the school debt. So immediately, the schools receive a benefit from the increased development that's occurring on there. And the townships or the city, whoever has that special assessment for fire or whatever that special assessment is, realizes that new value immediately. And the state school, as we know, based on Proposal A, that changes the school funding. So it's by the brownfield program, and it's not hurt by how the schools are funded. They are funded on a per pupil basis, and that is not based on the taxable value within your community. When I talked about the vision, this is a perfect example of needing a vision and how the brownfield program can implement that vision and help with that. River's Edge did have substantial environmental challenges associated with it, but we could have waited and we could have just said, there's a Walgreens that's coming on, but that's not what the DDA plan had identified. We really wanted more density. They wanted more housing on there, so they waited. And because of the Brownfield program, they got a substantial different redevelopment. Instead of having just one, was it Walgreens that they were having there? That would have happened, but because of, and I say but for, the planning component, we now have the River's Edge development, which has over $41 million of private investment and a mixed-use development and over 600 new jobs on that site alone. This is just a picture of River's Edge before and what it looks like today. Sometimes we forget about what a project looks like when we go by it all the time, and we just assume it's there and it would have happened. But that doesn't always just happen. And when you look at the River's Edge, there's substantial, what I call spin-off development that isn't part of the brownfield. It's the Regatta building, that's not part of the brownfield. But when you look at what's happened around there, you see these new buildings coming up because of the new activity that's coming on around it. And my last slide is just successful implementation. This is the Building 50, Grand Traverse Commons, the village. It is the largest historical renovation mixed-use development in the state of Michigan, and I say the United States, but it definitely is one of the largest. It's the largest mixed-use historical in Michigan, and it's close to the United States, and that's in your county and implemented with brownfield proceeds. So that's just a quick snapshot. I'm hoping that I gave you a little bit of information about the brownfield program and how it's been successful and what it means to your bottom line in your general fund.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Jean at all? Bob?
Can I get that presentation?
Yes, I can give you a link
Thank
to
you.
it. Is that
Yeah,
easier
that'll
to
work.
just,
Yeah.
or I can give you?
Well, there was some great
handout.
information in there I'd like to
Yeah,
look at a little closer up.
Yeah.
Sure.
Jean, can I?
Just send it to all of us.
Yeah, please. My eyesight just isn't quite that good to see those numbers.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anyone else at all? Okay. If you can go ahead and just give a quick introduction before we open the public hearing on the amended Traverse City Brownfield Plan.
Yes. Just as a reminder, I introduced this, I think, at the county board meeting. As a reminder, this is a 23 parcel brownfield plan. It has been implemented for several years, and the reason for this amendment is for 3 projects that are coming on. One is at 124 West Front Street, 207, 211, and 221. That is one development that is occurring, and the last is at 145. And the brownfield plan also includes Garland Street, the new infrastructure program that will be implemented by the DDA.
To the left of that 221, is that the Indigo site?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Sorry.
Just before it was there.
Yeah.
The captured taxes, just as a reminder, the brownfield program, it is inside the DDA. The brownfield will capture the ISD and the state taxes for the 23 parcels. So we're implementing and basically leveraging what the DDA is putting in public infrastructure and being able to help the private development move forward. For this, the original county tax base for when we put this in place was $9,469. After all of the investment is in place on just these 3 projects, it'll be over $277,549. The brownfield plan that's before you today for the amendment is strictly for environmental, which is $7,482,219, and that's broken down by each of the sites. So it's 124, 145, and then the Grandview Parkway, and Garland Street as well.
Jean, what is the component for Garland Street? I don't remember discussing it at Brownfield, but
Yeah.
are they ripping up the entire street?
They are redesigning that entire street, and Rob Bacciagalupi, the DDA director, could tell you what that'll look like.
But the environmental component, I mean, the
This is-
137?
This is just the environmental component, so the due care activities that they'll need to do once they remove the barrier on there. So they're going to remove the pavement.
They are removing the pavement?
They will remove the
Okay.
pavement, yes. So a quick overview, it's a 290% increase in taxable value. Taxes received into the general fund will go from $9,000 to $277,000. All the environmental cost is paid by the developer and upfronted by the developer and then paid back over a period of time based on the incremental increase on their site on the new taxes. They pay the tax bill, we capture the difference between the original tax base and the new development, and they wait over, in some instances, 10 to 15 years. The private investment on these three developments is $92 million, new commercial space, and 158 new residential units. The private developers are here, and they can talk more on the environmental components on each of their sites, if you'd like to do that.
Okay. Is there any questions at all for Jean from the board? And I had questioned already at Brownfield, the need for this additional money is, what year was the Traverse City Place Brownfield plan put into action? I think it was, was it the 90s or the early 2000s?
It's the early 2000s.
And it was
2001
originally one
or
developer with
2002.
23 parcels, and as time has gone on, it's not. And I couldn't understand this until I remembered that the Hotel Indigo was in the Traverse City Place Brownfield plan, and it has consumed all of the estimated environmental cleanup costs for all 23 parcels just in one project. So my concern at Brownfield was, how do we know that we don't have another Hotel Indigo? Every time we develop a parcel in Traverse City Place Brownfield plan, are we going to be amending the plan for an accelerated amount with the environmental cleanup? But there was a good discussion about that, and I did vote in favor of this amendment to the Brownfield plan, as I felt that they had explained it well. But, the developers are much better at that than I am. But that's why we're doing this, which wasn't clear to me, not having a history with the Traverse City Brownfield plan, that when they started this project so many years ago, they didn't anticipate what happened with the Hotel Indigo.
And it's hard to identify the environmental conditions on each of those sites until you know what development is going on those sites.
But the level of contamination was moving away from Indigo in a direction not towards these parcels, if I remember right. They didn't anticipate more contamination.
We don't anticipate additional contamination on the Grandview Parkway. We think that we're hoping that it's not going under those properties as well, and it was just hitting Hotel Indigo, that site.
And there is additional testing being done to try to single out the source of the contamination or the origination of the plumes.
The Brownfield Authority has been really proactive, and we've received additional dollars from the State Land Bank Authority for additional grant and loan funds to identify the source and try to remove the source.
And once that's done, we wouldn't see, hopefully, the accelerated need for more funding on the
Right.
environmental above what had been estimated. Bob?
What did the Hotel Indigo spend on their remediation? That was quite a bit, wasn't it?
Over $2.2 million,
And what did they
Just-
originally project? Do you know?
less than $1 million.
Okay.
The fact of the matter is, if there is contamination, it's right next to West Bay, and we have to clean it
We got to
up.
clean it up. Yep.
Right.
And
That's why
that's
we've
the
been-
bottom line.
Indigo was a worthwhile environmental cleanup, in my opinion.
You know, and I know about the plume. I've attended the Brownfield meetings. I have a family member who lives near the plume. Fortunately, she's on city water, but nevertheless, the contamination is headed for the bay, or it's close to the bay, and it has to be cleaned up.
I was happy to hear about they were going beyond just the regular research, and we're looking into finding the source of it, which would certainly stop a lot of the issues that we have. So, was there anyone that wanted to bring, son?
Well, I guess the point that I would make is, this is a perfect example where Grand Traverse County, through its Brownfield Authority, has been very proactive for the environmental cleanup that's benefiting our community today and well into the future. We've identified a number of sites in our community. We think back of what River's Edge looked like when the Ironworks was sitting there, and we look at the piece out, we had another one out off Arrow Park Drive, off Parsons Road back a few years ago, when the casting company, it used to be Traverse City Ironworks, moved out there and eventually just kind of abandoned their facility, and all the castings and substrate material that was just simply left on the site contaminating the groundwater. And we were able to clean it up, and it makes a difference well into the future. One of the things we talked a little bit about this morning with the Brownfield Authority is some of the sites where we've been able to, the land bank has taken parcels of property that had abandoned buildings and things on them and cleaned them up. By partnering with the Brownfield Authority, we've been able to clean those up and benefit the community as a whole. So, I think it's a perfect example of where Grand Traverse County is leading the way with environmental cleanups that benefit our community as a whole.
Does anyone have a question for Jean at all? Or would any of you like one of the developers to come up with a specific question about any of the projects? I'm going to go ahead and, thank you, Gina, go ahead and open up the public hearing. If there's anybody in the public that would like to make comment about the request for an amendment to the Traverse City Place Brownfield Plan, adding the additional costs for environmental cleanup in the amount of $7 million plus. I will close the public hearing.
Madam Chairman, I would move to approve the resolution in our packet for immediate approval of the amendment to the Traverse City Place amended Brownfield Plan.
Support.
Moved by Wheelock, supported by Johnson, because he's the loudest, and I'm
I
not sure.
know, he's close.
When I get the buzzers sometime, when everybody, the name will pop up for the chair to read. Is there any discussion at all on the motion? Okay, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote, please.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yeah.
Johnson,
Yes.
Crawford,
Yes.
Klaus,
Yes.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Kropa.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Jean. Items removed from the consent calendar. We have item B1. Commissioner Wheelock.
I provided you with a letter of a conflict of interest. On May 28th, I was contacted by Long Lake Marina to make repairs to a lower unit for an outboard motor. Unbeknownst to me, when they made the phone call, that motor belonged on a Grand Traverse County Marine Division boat. When it arrived to me, it needed to be sandblasted and repairs to the skeg, which we promptly took care of so as that the unit could be put back together and installed back on the boat. The total cost for that repair was $57.50. But because it's a project that I was doing for the end result in customer was Grand Traverse County, I have to provide you 10 days notice in order to do it, in order to meet the full requirements. We deemed that this was an emergency repair, so we kind of waived the 10-day notice. I contacted Mr. Cooney and Mr. Bott, and we made the repairs and put the unit back in order. Protocol in our purchasing policy requires that I provide the county board 10 days notice of any job I do for Grand Traverse County. So.
And the board will need to approve the contract by a 3/4 majority, which is 5, 2 of you.
And
Hey.
5.2.
There's not a contract in the packet
Darn
for
it,
us
Sonny,
to
you're
see.
milking the company. County dry.
This is the agreement. You could just approve the cost.
Was what,
We do
57
claims,
what?
right?
$57.50.
Since there isn't an agreement to look at, to vote on, can we just do this at claim, or when we approve the invoices then?
I don't think we can. I think we have to approve it,
there
don't we,
was
Bob?
I think we have to approve the conflict of interest.
Yeah.
We do it both ways, so you could either approve
Okay, we'll just approve it when the invoice comes through.
Okay, you're good, Sonny.
I try to provide you as much notice as I can, but sometimes it just doesn't give me the
Well,
opportunity
that'll
to
be
do
over
that.
10 days from now, so then we can just be just fine with it. I will go ahead and move to receive the letter of conflict of interest from Wheelock dated May 28th, 2015.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Clerk, please note that I abstain, please. Thank you.
On to department action items, the Commission on Aging, Georgia.
Good evening, Georgia Durga, Director, Grand Traverse County Commission on Aging. I have a couple things that weren't on the agenda. First of all, our annual report is done. It looks like this, and you should have all gotten a hard copy. We did not print many hard copies because we wanted to be more environmentally friendly and to keep the cost down. So as of tomorrow, we want to make sure you all saw it and our board saw it. We will be posting it on our website so the public can go and check out our annual report that looks like this for 2014 on our website. The next thing is we had our 40th anniversary celebration yesterday. Thank you to the commissioners that were there. I really appreciate it. We had 55 people come, which is a lot for that kind of celebration. And there was a very nice article in the Grand Traverse Insider that I will pass around. We also, yesterday at our board meeting, were presented with an award from the State AARP Association. We host a driver safety class for older adults in our office. They're held throughout the state of Michigan, and we got the award for having the highest number of participants in the most classes in the state. So we got this award for last year, 2014, and so we were very proud that we were the highest in the state. So I wanted to bring and show you this. This is our clerks. Teresa and Laura deserve most of the credit for this. They have been fabulous and welcoming and helped the instructors and got the room set up. So I have to thank them for this award. And the last thing is, if I can figure out, we have a, save this or just close it? Should just go down. Here. Want me to don't save? Don't save. Okay. Okay. We have been working for probably the last 6 months, the Commission on Aging Board, with Greg Smith from Lawton Gallagher Group to put together some low-cost PSAs to inform the public about what we do. We haven't been doing that for a while because we've had wait lists, but we feel like I'm getting more and more questions about what does the COA do, Commission on Aging do, what services do you offer. So our board felt like we needed to get the word out more. So we did very low cost PSAs, and one of them is a video PSA, and we were fortunate enough to get the professor, Mike Sheehan, to be the voice of our PSA. So I wanted to show this. It's 30 seconds.
I love his show. I listen to him every week. I love his show.
So I'm going to show it, and it starts pretty fast, I think.
He does Words to the Wise. He's awesome.
For over 40 years, your Grand Traverse County Commission on Aging has been caring for those who cared for you. We offer a full range of services for adults 60 years and older who live in Grand Traverse County. Our dedicated in-home staff is known for providing compassionate and capable care to seniors. And our Senior Center Network offers a wide variety of programming for vital, active adults 60 years of age and older. We're your Grand Traverse County Commission on Aging.
So that will be, you will start to see that on TV, Charter. There will be some print ads in Record Eagle and some of the other papers, and these are all shown at no charge to us because they're part of public, I think they have to do some community service or public service. So we get these all published at no charge as they can fill in. So you'll be starting to see those after tomorrow. So, yes. Maybe. I'm up then sometimes. So, does anyone have any questions?
It's overrated anyway.
It's gotta be. All right, thank you.
Well, and then, did you want to speak on TIF 2, or Commissioner Maxwell, were you going to?
It is on the agenda, COA request for support to end or reset the TIF 2 district in the city of Traverse City. But at our board discussion, the COA board said that really this is a decision whether or not we weigh in on the city's decision, and the COA board simply will support whatever the county board decides to do.
Okay.
Does that sum it up?
Yep.
Thank you,
Alrighty.
Georgia. Did anyone want to
Rob.
I
place?
think Rob wants to
Oh,
talk about
I'm sorry. I can't even see behind there. My apologies. That podium is a problem from the chairs.
It's where I sat.
It's probably who you sat next to.
That wasn't nice.
Rob Baccigalupi, DDA Director. I just wanted to mention on the TIF 2 issue, the City Commission discussed it at a meeting June 1st, and their direction, and they took no action, which essentially was direction to not renew, or to not extend it. So that decision has essentially been made by their lack of action. So I suspect you probably know that, but I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that.
So the options then are to completely end it or to reset it?
Right.
And when are they discussing that, or what's the timeline for that?
They did express interest in resetting it, and so the timeline would be to come back to the City Commission with some sort of new plan. Essentially, we'd have to write a new plan before the end of the year. One of the things we talked about doing is inviting the taxing authorities in to talk with taxing authorities about their interest and their, kind of what their interest in the idea of a reset. So that's something that we will do, the DDA will do.
Okay. So we can probably expect Grand Traverse County to be invited in as one of the partners in that.
Yes, there is a legislative or the process in the law does require notifying the taxing authorities kind of before the plan is approved, but our plan is to invite them in beforehand, before we even draft the plan, so we can, get input from taxing authorities.
So you're expecting to have that sometime?
Got to get through the summer.
Just
but,
through the summer, okay.
But probably toward, the September timeframe.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I don't think we probably need to discuss putting it on a agenda in the near future?
No.
Okay. Was there anyone else that had comment on TIF 2? Okay. We will move on to the next item, which is Community Corrections Approval to submit grant application to MDOC OCA and request to add pretrial services program and is that minus .8 FTE compliance officer? Okay, I was wondering, how do we subtract .8? Someone's leaving tonight. And 1 FTE compliance officer. I don't think anyone's ever come and requested to subtract anyone, so.
No.
Actually, 0.8.
I should probably zoom in so I can see.
My name is Sheree Shively, and I'm the manager of Community Corrections. We service Antrim, Grand Traverse, and Leelanau counties for the 13th Circuit Court. And I'm asking for 2 approvals tonight. The first is every year I have to come before you to ask for permission to submit our grant application to the Department of Corrections. The grant is $188,915, and it is the substantial part of our funding for our program. We are a Department of Corrections funded program, and so they pretty much tell us what we can do with our programs, which leads me to my second point why I'm here tonight. We are overseen by a public act, and that was enacted in 1988, and it has not been changed since then. And it was changed last year in 2014, which took effect this January. Part of that, there's different components that Community Corrections targets. Our #1 target is to reduce prison commitment rates in the state. To prison, those who go into prison. One of the other components is to reduce recidivism. So we're trying to help folks that they can learn to make better choices in their life so they don't continue to commit crime. The third component that we used to have was we had a positive impact on jail utilization. What that meant for us is that we go into the jails and we can get inmates out of jail and place them into jail alternative programming. So instead of serving their full sentence here, we place them in different parts of the community. They can go into residential treatment, they go into a recovery home, which is a sober living environment, or we can place them on house arrest. With that component, we have been able to target misdemeanor offenders, which is a significant portion of our programming. I would say that we have 60% misdemeanors and 40% felons. And so with the funding from the Department of Corrections, we are supposed to target 80% of our target has to be felons. So we are unbalanced with that. With this new act, they completely removed the component that has any positive impact on jail utilization. And so that removes any programming that we can do with misdemeanors.
We're penalized because we don't have a high enough amount of felons in our
Yeah.
county. Okay, just wanted to make sure I heard that right.
You've got it right there.
Okay.
Well, we don't have the felons because Judge Power and Reg Rogerson is in the prison. They're not in our jail.
We won't say that we have the highest prison commitment rate. We have the second highest prison commitment rate in the state.
Wow.
Which our community appreciates, but the state of Michigan and Department of Corrections don't.
That is true.
And so what I try to do is give them opportunities to place people in the local jails so that they won't send them to prison. And they have a good working relationship with us. They do. They work with us. The folks who, frankly, the folks who they send to prison are the folks who should be going to prison. We have significant programming. We have recovery court, which is the drug court, the sobriety court. That diverts a lot of people from going into even being convicted as a felon, and they can stay in the misdemeanor population. Those who stay in our local jails are the people that the judges want to stay in the local jail. If they send them to prison, they're definitely worthy of it. And so what I had to do was then make a very quick decision. I think I had about 3 weeks to try and figure out what I was going to do if we weren't going to be able to service misdemeanors anymore. So I met with my grant coordinator from the state of Michigan, and we went through and looked at the options that they will allow in the grant. And because we don't have the felony population, we really only came up, he gave me one option. So he gave me this is what you're going to do. And that is to create what is called pretrial supervision. And it is actually something that is needed in our area and has not been provided. Community corrections throughout the state are the ones who manage the pretrial services programs for the counties. So it's not something that's out of the norm for what community corrections does. What it is servicing the folks from the time of arrest until they are convicted with basically a lot of the same programs we're already doing with folks once they are convicted and put into jail. It just can be as simple as just monitoring their drug test into putting them into treatment before they're even convicted for things, so that it gives the prosecutor, the judges, different options for people because they can see that maybe these people are trying to change their lives before they even get before them. I've met with the prosecutors, with the one here, but I've also talked to the other prosecutors in the other 2 counties because I do service all 3 counties. I've also met with Dean Bott, and they are in support of these programs. There are things that we can provide to people that really aren't being provided right now. A person can get arrested, and except for just monitoring their drug tests and their PBTs, there really isn't anything that's being done with them. We would meet with them and do what we do best. We monitor people. We see what their needs are. We find out what they need. When we work with somebody, nobody is a cookie cutter. Every case that we take them case by case, and we figure out what their needs are and work with what, typically it's addiction. It's about 85% of the folks that we deal with are dealing with addictions. So we can target that. So this is just starting at the very beginning of the process. Instead of the folks they may be waiting months for their trial and they're doing nothing to, better themselves in that time. We would be working with them in that process. Also, there are some people that should be monitored more closely, and they're just not being monitored because there isn't anybody to do it. So in a way, I think this is a great opportunity that we've been given. Basically, here's this money that you have to do something with, and you can do whatever you want with it. They're not telling us what we have to do with it. They're just telling us that we have to do pretrial supervision. So that is something that we can create, and so we'll create a steering committee with the prosecutors, with the judges, and some other people in the community to find out what we want to do with this, and we can make it whatever works for us. And it might be different in Antrim, and it might be different in Leelanau than it would be here. So it really is going to be something that we can target for whoever needs. Now, in order to service those, what do we do with the misdemeanor people? Because we still need to take care of those. Today I counted, and we had 39 people out of Grand Traverse County Jail that are misdemeanors, misdemeanor offenders. How many people do we have in the Leelanau County Jail today because we have to board them there? You would add all those people back into the Leelanau County Jail, or, be boarding them somewhere because they wouldn't be in our program. And it's just, those folks need help too. Just because we don't have, community corrections for those doesn't matter. So I met with Dean. We thankfully have, over the last about year and a half, really, really increased our revenues with some of the programs that we have. And we have the revenues available to replace basically the funds that are going to be taken out of the grant for the misdemeanor population, and we'll be able to cover that with our revenues. So I'm not even asking for any additional money or anything. It's just kind of a shell game of moving around from being funded through the grant to now being funded through revenues. So that's what I'm asking today. In order for me to submit my grant, I had to make these changes. And so in order to make the changes, you have to approve them. So they're both tied hand in hand.
So the $42,095 estimated cost for the additional 0.8 FTE is covered by?
That's covered in the grant.
Okay.
And then I made additional changes in the grant and some adjustments because the total cut was $47,000 or something. So I had to make some additional changes in that, and then those can be fulfilled with the revenues that we have.
Does anyone have any questions? Do you have a question?
No, I was just going to make the motion to approve the grant application as outlined by the Community Corrections Advisor.
Support. Does this have to be immediate? I
No,
know you
Sonny,
love
it
it so
doesn't
much,
have I did want to make one change. I did have a request from Chris Kramer, and she said, please try to have them approve the application and acceptance of the funding upon receipt so that I don't have to come back when we receive the funds from them. And I've already submitted my grant. You have to submit it before I come and get permission. It's very weird, and part of the grant, it even asks you, when are you going before your county board? So I don't need this to be, immediate would be great, because I've already submitted it to them.
We already approved this Community Corrections.
Oh, okay, all right.
And
I
we
think
do-
what I heard Sunny say was exactly what you need to be said.
Yes.
For the, and I'm sure Bonnie will double check that, so that we can assist you
We'll
in
make sure
the
it's
best
worded
way.
right.
Okay.
Okay, moved by Wheelock, supported by Johnson. Any discussion? Wheelock?
Well, I guess the comment, over the years, I've had 2 opportunities to sit on the Community Corrections Board, and I will say that, without this group of individuals and without these programs, we think we have a jail overcrowding problem today. We have one that was just simply out of control. I met with Captain Hall today, and I believe there are somewhere around 25 people boarded out right today between Leelanau and Charlevoix County, and there will be another group going out on Friday because they simply do not have any. If you looked at your snapshot population, our snapshot population last month was 188 people, and we have a maximum jail capacity of 168. So it tells us that we have a problem already, and without community corrections, we'd add in another 25 or 30 every day.
No, that was just misdemeanors.
Oh, that's misdemeanors.
Today, we had
So
54 people out of jail in Grand
How many?
Traverse County. 54 today.
54 today. So we'd be not only paying for 25 people out a day, we'd be paying for another 54 today if we didn't have a very active community corrections people.
And I will say
component.
proudly, when the jail is overcrowded, we are the first call that they make to see if there's something we can do very quickly or what are we doing. And there's been times that we will get somebody out that day. I mean, we are the first call they make if there's anybody with a medical problem in jail. We just immediately go get the person out of jail, and it relieves the county of any responsibility financially for somebody. We put them on house arrest with community corrections. We put them on a GPS. We know where they're at, and we monitor them. So we're the first call that the jail makes when there's any kind of problems with that, and we just want to continue to be that resource for them. It's a partnership that we work with them.
Bob?
Yeah, I just continue to be impressed by what I hear about corrections all the time here. I mean, we talk about beds and everything else, but it goes farther than that. I mean, you're trying to impact these people's lives, to try to turn it around. Some of them probably made stupid decisions. I've never made one that, But it is nice to see that.
I did once, but I was mistaken.
Today.
Yeah. It's just nice to see that, that it's caring too. It's not just saying, well, we got to keep people out of the jail because we can't do it because we don't have the beds. It's actually caring for what they're doing and trying to help them. So I applaud what everyone is doing down there.
We need to change these people's lives.
Yes.
And sometimes they have to be prodded very forcefully to change their lives, but we try very hard, and that is why every single person that comes before us gets their own plan. It isn't just the same for anybody.
Now, there's probably some people that say it'd be easier to go to jail,
And they stay there.
and, you know,
We have a very much, we are not to get out of jail. That is not what our program is, even though it is to get folks out
Yeah.
of jail. But our program is not to get folks out of jail. If you want to get out of jail, stop committing crime. That's what I say to them. You don't like being here?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I don't frequent businesses that I don't like. And so if you don't like it here, stop doing something that brings yourself back here. So those folks, they will stay in jail. We want the folks that want to change their life and make a better impact on themselves and to change things. And so those are the folks that we focus in. Sometimes it might take 3-4 times with them, and we still help them no matter how many times. But I'm proud of
Thank
what we
you.
do. So thank you for approving it.
Was that for immediate effect then?
We didn't vote.
It doesn't, it's,
She had the correct wording,
Yes, and
something about the receiving of the funds. What was the wording that you needed?
Chris says, she's
Okay.
telling me what to do.
Oh, even.
tells us what to do too.
Yeah. It's all better if you just let Chris tell you.
That's what I said. I believe Sunny said exactly what you needed to be said.
Approve application and acceptance of funding upon receipt.
Dan?
Just wanted to say that, for the public's knowledge, that this does keep people out of jail, and that's a lot cheaper. That's true. But also, this program actually works. People do better on it. They don't fail again as much recidivism. Would you call it?
Recidivism.
repeat
I
offenders.
can't even say that.
It's a hard word.
But that doesn't happen
takes
as
practice.
much. Yeah. So not only is it cost-worthy, it works in their lives too, so it's a double benefit.
Well, I just want you to keep all this in mind, because there's other things that we're working on in the future to try and make things even better. So just keep that in mind.
Well, yes, we are big supporters of public safety here. At least I can speak for myself. It's the absolute
Yeah.
top
Going to mention that.
of what I believe we're here as a government to do, and that's to provide a safe place for people to live. So
Couldn't agree.
you are a giant portion of that. We will need a roll call vote for this.
Johnson?
Yes.
Crawford?
Yes.
Klaus?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Lathrop?
Yes.
Kropa?
Yes. I will go ahead and move to approve the resolution to add a program of pretrial services and staffing plan change to add 1.8 FTE compliance officer.
Second.
Now,
It's just point.
you said 1.8, you mean?
No, it says, I'm reading it, add 1.8 FTE compliance officer. I'm reading it right from the written motion. I know, I bet, I would
Single
like to make a
point eight.
negative .8.
A single
but-
point.
A single
Look, it's what Chris
0.8.
Kramer wrote, and I'm reading
It is.
Yes. Is there
I just wanted to clarify.
Yes. Seconded by Crawford. Is there any discussion on the staffing plan change? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And that one is not immediate effect? that's
Not
just-
according to
okay.
my cheat sheet here.
All righty.
Okay, thank you, Sharice.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, on to the next thing. I gotta get up there,
This is true.
and I gotta zoom in so I can actually read it. It's Wendy.
Yeah, I'm the guilty party for the
There you-
immediate effect tonight. But I did ask for it 2 weeks ago, so.
This is
And I
why
warned you that it was all
Semi-immediate.
coming in, it was a big thick packet to read,
Yeah,
so.
you're the guilty party for the 171 pages.
Sorry. Hey, that is greatly reduced. Wendy Chert, Health Officer, Grand Traverse County Health Department, and I'm going to add something on at the end, it's just a FYI, so.
Okay, no problem.
Doesn't need action. I'm bringing before you tonight for approval our plan of operation for the Health Department. This is the first step in the accreditation process. This gets submitted to the state 2 months ahead of our actual on-site review, which will occur in August, the first week. And in August, they'll come on site and they'll observe 11 programs. They'll observe in the clinic, they'll ask staff questions, and then they'll meet with management team and ask us questions, and they'll review all of our policies and procedures and all kinds of things, volumes and volumes. And basically, we are proving that we're a good health department and we meet all these different standards, so.
How many years is it good for, the accreditation? 3.
This is the 6th cycle of 3 years. I completely revamped it, 'cause I couldn't just update it. It was fine the way it was just probably formatted for the first cycle, so. It essentially is a summary of how we're organized as a health department. It has our organizational chart, has our annual reports that kind of demonstrate all the different metrics that we measure, has our current exposure plan for bloodborne pathogens, our chemical hygiene plan, a list of all our partnerships and our collaborative efforts, and that builds upon our strategic plan. And then, because I am new, I started, I think, 2 weeks after they finished the accreditation last time, that it has to show the approval and my credentials in there as well for this cycle. So I'll entertain questions. I can tell you I even learned things doing this. We have a lot of legal responsibilities. There's a lot of laws that we ensure. And if you have any questions at all. I tried to hyperlink as much as I could so it wasn't volumes of paper.
Sunny.
Madam Chairman, I would move to approve the organizational plan as outlined by the Health Department Director
Or immediate?
for immediate effect.
Support?
Motion by Wheelock, support by Johnson. Any discussion at all? Sunny?
Like Wendy said, this makes 18 years that we've been through this process. We're probably one of a very small percentage of counties that go to the effort to do this. And again, Grand Traverse County's out front, and they've been that way a long time. And, I appreciate Wendy's efforts to revamp this a little different. I think it's a little easier to read this time than it was 3 years ago. Somehow or another, I think the volume got bigger, though. I don't know. Maybe you printed it in bigger print. I just didn't remember it being 100 and some pages long the last time.
The main document actually I cut in half.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe
it's the
I must be
attachments.
getting old because it seemed like it took me a lot longer to read it the other night than it did the last time. But
Exciting reading, too.
it is. It's terribly exciting to read.
Carol?
But it's very well done.
Thank you.
It is very well organized, and I could even understand most of it,
I
which is
appreciate
good.
that.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
been basically 7 months of weekend
Yes,
working
it
on
is
this,
a very
because there's no
good
other
job.
time to do it. so.
It is, it's very well presented, and it is a very good job,
And
yes.
it flowed nicely,
Yes.
too.
Well, it was actually my goal, since we have a lot of new board members, and the state, I don't think necessarily understands that we're sort of like a health department plus. I really tried to, and some of the reviewers are going to be new, and we have a lot of new staff going through the process as well. So it was, as much about even educating myself as much as everybody else, so.
If
It's
I
actually a
need to
good
know
document
what
when
you
you're
do,
done.
I will go right back to this. Absolutely. It's very informative.
We're going to need a roll call vote for the immediate approval.
Crawford,
Yes.
Klaus,
Yes.
Wheelock,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yeah,
Johnson,
Yes.
Kropa.
Yes. Thank you, Wendy, for all your work.
thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the other thing I wanted to mention, since we had our lots of outbreaks this fall and all the fun that went with that, we were asked to present at the State Communicable Disease Conference, and 3 of us presented, and that went really well. And then we also just heard that our abstract was accepted for the State Public Health Conference. So we'll do a little bit different take with a more of an epidemiologic kind of analysis on just our pertussis outbreak for that one. Kind of try to link it to the school waiver rates, so that'll be interesting. But while we were at the State Communicable Disease Conference, they presented us with, I'm going to read it because it's kind of a Bring an Extra Umbrella because when it rains it pours award. It's from the State Health Department, and it's for our diligent efforts and multitasking skills responding to a measles outbreak, pertussis outbreak, and Ebola traveler monitoring all at the same time.
Wow.
So you probably don't know because it's not a public thing, but we did monitor 3 people who had traveled to African countries during that same time frame as the outbreaks, and thankfully everyone that was in our community was the lowest risk possible. It basically means they were in the country. They didn't do anything medical. They didn't have any real true exposure, but because they were in the country, there was extra precautions taken, and so our nursing staff had to touch base with those people 2 times a day, monitored for temperatures and signs and symptoms, and it allowed us to kind of put Munson and first responders on alert status in case symptoms were to develop. So it was a really good process, and we ended up getting some additional funding for that. So anyway, I wanted to say the award is really honestly for the entire staff. because during the operations, we implemented, thanks to Mike Leahy, our emergency preparedness coordinator, he had a new version of incident command for health departments. So instead of just like a one-day fire, where you normally implement that, when you have ongoing things, you also have to maintain a certain level of essential services. So we kind of broke our staff into two different kind of pods for response. And then under the emergency response, we had 3 different strike teams for the pertussis, the measles, and the Ebola. And so we were able to kind of keep people in the isolated areas. It would be way too hard to get all the kind of details of each outbreak confused if you were trying to focus on more than one at once. So it was a process that worked really well, and that was part of what we presented on. So it really did involve all staff, because those that focused on the essential services really allowed the rest of us to focus on kind of the outbreak. So,
As far as statewide in the different counties, where did Grand Traverse County fall as far as the number of pertussis cases? Were we at the top?
for November, or for 2014?
Yeah.
I don't know that I've seen that final number. I think we were near the top.
That's what I had understood.
We may
had
have been the top.
a significantly higher population with it than the majority of the counties in Michigan.
Based on our population.
Right.
So I'd have to look at the incident rate that kind of allows you to compare county to county.
I don't think
We were the
anyone
only cases-
realizes the
Yeah.
implications of some people's choices last fall. We say that we got funding or grant money to help us with that, but that's tax money too.
Well,
And
we didn't really get funding
as far as for the
pertussis.
Ebola watching and.
Oh, that.
Yeah. And there are implications to the amount of hours that were put in by our health department staff alone.
I believe
in
the
just one county.
cost we estimated was $62,000
Amazing.
for those two things.
And tired people too.
And we were the only measles cases in Michigan.
Yeah. So that was interesting too, and I know it impacted me when, I believe it was you that said, but it could have been someone else at the health department, about in order to isolate people, you were going to their cars in the parking lot to make sure that they weren't even coming in. I mean, the amount of work that went into this is really amazing, that no one, I don't think, ever thinks about at home. Well, you had people that thought they were ill coming to one central location, and we're trying to keep them isolated, and just the coordination aspect alone is very impressive to me, and let's hope everybody ran out and got their kids vaccinated after that.
Let's hope.
Let's hope.
Wendy,
Thank you.
will you give us a follow-up report, possibly next fall, if we can try to assess where we're at percentage-wise? Because I know that, our numbers for children that were in schools that were not immunized was three times the state average and the national average. It'd be interesting to see after these outbreaks if in fact that number comes down.
Maybe I'll offer to do it in a two-step process. We might do it right in the fall and kind of show you where we're at just as a result of the law going into place. But since then, TCAPS has also, I wouldn't say they changed their policy, they are just enforcing it stricter the way the law is written. So they're now requiring any grade to come to the health department if they request a waiver to get a certified waiver. Basically, it gives them informed consent, so they have that in their file. Versus in the past, if it wasn't one of the state required grades, sometimes they were more lenient on the waivers. They still had to have them, but they were not authorized by the health department. So we think that process alone is also going to reduce some of the numbers. Some of the numbers in our county we've learned is just from people not having the time to get their kids to the doctor, which isn't really a valid reason from a health officer perspective. But so we're going to see some of those changes too, but we probably won't have those official numbers until probably next April. But we do have a PhD epidemiology student from Michigan State University who's approached our medical director to do his master's thesis on all this.
I think we're probably thesis worthy.
Some high-level analysis. We're working on trying to get the logistics and all the, approvals and everything official on that, but that'll be actually a pretty cool thing when it's done.
Thank you to everyone there for all that they did. On to John. The summary of the Joint Housing Task Force.
Good evening, John Syke, Planning and Development Director for Grand Traverse County. I just wanted to provide you with a summary of the Joint Housing Task Force. So there's just no action here, just to provide you some information on how that task force went. Just to give you some background, that was a task force that actually the discussion started with last fall with Mayor Estes and then County Board Chair Lemkool. Talked about the idea of a task force. I think it was the interest of the mayor to realize that some of the housing issues that are facing our community are broader than just the city. Through those discussions, it was thought to bring the county, the city, and representatives from Garfield and East Bay Township together to form this task force to really have some discussions with the leadership. So there was elected officials that were represented from those entities as well as their staff support. There was some discussions that started back in October and went to April, and I just want to point out about 8 highlights from those discussions. One, it was to recognize that housing choices is just as important as some of the other elements to make a successful community, including jobs, transportation, marketplace, and so forth. There was a review of the studies. This was not intended to be a study, but there was a review of some of the studies that have been developed in Grand Traverse County. I'm not going to talk about those, but I do say probably one of the key takeaways from those is our occupancy rate for rental properties in Grand Traverse County is at about 98%, which is pretty high. There was discussions of affordable. I think that's one of those issues that a lot of people have an opinion about, but really kind of the basic definition of what's affordable housing is when a household pays more than 30% of their income towards housing. I think the reality is when we talk about affordable housing projects, it's really determined based on the funding that's provided for that particular project, because those often will determine the restrictions in terms of what market segment that they're focused on. So it's really hard to determine that there's just one blanket approach to all the different projects that we might see in our community. There was discussion on housing types. I think most of our discussion, there's a kind of a broad spectrum of housing, everything from homeless shelters at one end to single-family homes on the other end that people own and live in. This was really mostly focused on kind of the market rate part of the thing, part of housing. It was more about looking at some of the affordable housing. A lot of the organizations that may be doing transitional housing and so forth are running into a problem where there's just not available housing stock. So what they would like to see is more housing stock built. A lot of our housing stock, particularly rentals, is limited, and there's a need for additional rental units in our community. We talked about building types, what's considered the missing middle. At one end you have your single-family detached homes, and on the other end you have your kind of your mid-rise developments, your apartment complexes, and realizing that there's a lot of ways that we could add housing into our community that cover a different variety of types of housing. And by that I mean things like duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, things like cottage courts, which are groupings of small homes. There's also obviously townhomes, townhouses, micro apartments, which can be very small, 500 square foot apartments, which works well for singles or couples, particularly for those that might be in a transient situation. Live-work units, which opportunity for people to actually, those are kind of places where people can live but also operate their business as well. We looked at different tools that are available locally, particularly zoning, and that there's a need to continue to increase flexibility in zoning in our communities regarding housing developments. We also looked, I think is interesting piece is target market analysis that was done for Grand Traverse County and actually all of the 10 counties in our region. It was a project funded by the Council of Governments and the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. The target market analysis is a little bit different than your traditional housing market study. This was focused on really kind of looking at those demographic segments in our community that, based on what are their buying preferences, including housing. And so this target market analysis looked for those people that are, this was a focus for MSHDA, for those that are more likely to purchase homes in more urbanizing areas. The study for Grand Traverse County showed a conservative scenario which has a projection of the need for 1,215 housing units annually within the kind of the urban area, and of those, 996 are rental units. And that's an annual demand over the next 5 years, so that's 1,215 units on an annual basis. And the last point of the discussion was talking about public-private partnerships. There is a role for government in these public-private partnerships. I think you have some of the tools already in place with the Land Bank Authority, the Brownfield Authority, that can provide some certain structures that are available to housing developments. The other key components to those are that a nonprofit organization, if there's an affordable element to it, as well as the private sector in terms of the private investment. Certainly, I think any types of projects that the county would be involved, or local units of government would want to be involved in projects where there's a mixed income of use of housing, so that you're not having concentrations of affordable units in one area, but actually have a mix of market rate units and affordable units. The task force concluded with 4 key actions or recommendations that came out of that. The first one was to market development opportunities or locations in our community. So the city, in the 2 townships, I actually identified some potential locations for development or redevelopment for housing in our communities. Not necessarily saying that those are available for housing, but say those are locations where they would be willing to see development occur. There was also a recommendation to continue partnerships and partnership opportunities with nonprofit organizations and for-profit developers. And then a third key action was to unite housing resources, certainly communicating amongst the local units of government for opportunities where they can utilize their resources, whether it's payment in lieu of taxes or affordable housing trust funds. I think it's important that if there's collaboration or coordination of those, that they be only applied strategically. These are incentives, they are investment opportunities for communities to advance their goals. They shouldn't be handed out loosely, but strategically. And then finally was just to continue the awareness of the issue for the community. Continue leadership. Certainly, I think this was a unique opportunity. There's been a lot of discussions on housing within our community. This was the first time that local elected leadership actually had an opportunity to discuss this issue. There was finally a countywide community-wide proclamation that was suggested as an opportunity for organizations, local governments to add their names to that proclamation. One of our observations, certainly in our department and working on the land bank and so forth, is we found that there are a lot of housing organizations in our community, particularly the nonprofits, that are working on this issue, but there's not a lot of good communication or collaboration amongst those units or organizations. We're seeing a lot of people kind of going out individually. I think there's networked opportunities to actually do projects together, and I think that's where the proclamation is intended to. Let's open up the lines of communication and see where there's leveraging of resources to actually advance community goals. And just to follow up, this information is available. It's in the packet, is also available on the county's website. If you go to grandtraverse.org, the Planning and Development Department webpage, and you click on the left side is the Joint Housing Task Force. You can see all the minutes or notes from those meetings, all the PowerPoints and so forth that were used as part of that discussion, as well as all the reports that were discussed. So that's the conclusion of my report. If you have any comments or questions.
Did you want the resolution to be discussed with this board? Was that, there wasn't a recommendation, but it was in the letter that you were presenting resolutions to each of the different boards involved?
That's up to you if you want to consider that. I don't know if it's something you want to consider tonight or at a subsequent meeting.
Okay. Chris?
No, I just wanted to, this brought to mind my Networks Northwest, which used to be the Northwest Michigan Council of Governments, in case anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about. The Networks Northwest meeting Monday night, Sarah Lucas did a presentation on housing. And I I do apologize. I meant to bring the information with me, and I'm going to email her a request to get the electronic information. But what I found was interesting is she presented some new housing information, and Grand Traverse County, in order to afford, well, first of all, I think she said the average rent in the state of Michigan, affordable rent, is $788 a month. Grand Traverse County, if memory serves me, and I hope it does, the average affordable rent was $825 a month. Now, in order to just meet that rental requirement, you need $15 and I think 87 cents an hour. If I remember this, it's amazing. An hourly wage, 40 hours a week. One of the things I did discuss, and I have neglected to mention this at the Joint Housing Task Force, is how city ordinances and/or other ordinances affect your property and what you can do with it. And I'm going to give you an example. Well, first of all, I mentioned that I have 2 rental units in East Bay Township, which actually the taxes are less on more square footage in East Bay Township than my house, my 2-bedroom, 1-bath house in the city of Traverse City. Now, my husband and I used to have 2 cars and his truck, and I just have to go down this road. I can't help myself. In the wintertime, we would park in the driveway. His truck was in the garage, and he would shovel next to the driveway and park our second car there. Well, you can't do that. So I looked into whether or not I could build a garage off the alley, which I can do, but the hoops that I had to jump through because I'm in the historic district didn't make it worth it. So long story short, we ended up selling our car. But these types of rules and regulations really restrict what you can do for affordable housing inside the city of Traverse City. That's been my experience. And I just wanted to share that. And I wanted to say out loud about Sarah Lucas's presentation, because if I say it out loud, I'm going to remember to email her for the information that she presented at Networks Northwest and then electronically transmit it all to you, because it was extraordinarily interesting. It ranked all of the 83 counties in the state of Michigan and what it costs to live there and what you need to make as far as an hourly wage. So, and the rental costs. Thank you.
Do you have a question for John?
Just a few comments. I can honestly say I was pleased to chair this Joint Housing Task Force. I've been involved in affordable housing for quite a while. I want to thank John and his staff, Russ Soring and his staff, for their assistance, because without their assistance, we couldn't have put this all together and made it work. Some of the things that stand out is when we look at the studies that stated that first of all, the 80% average mean income in this community is about $56,000 a year. I know a lot of people that don't make $56,000 a year and could qualify for affordable housing. The statistic that really jumped out was when we looked at the fact that the average person in Grand Traverse County spends about 53% of their income either on housing or transportation. So the idea that we drive till we can afford the rent, when we start adding the energy costs in and the transportation costs in, it doesn't necessarily make sense. But we spent a lot of time discussing those barricades that Chris talks about, the fact that MSHDA, in order to qualify for affordable housing programs, they have to be connected to water and sewer. Well, there's a lot of people in Grand Traverse County that need assistance with affordable housing, but they don't live in the city of Traverse City. And I'm not about to tell people, I can help you with your affordable housing need, but you have to move to downtown Traverse City from Mayfield Township. I can't do that. The other thing that was very disturbing was when I started hearing from the Housing Commission that they had literally hundreds of thousands of dollars of rent vouchers from the state and the feds that they could not find qualified housing to make them available to people to use. So the money got sent back. And that's unfortunate, because, there are people in our community that could use that assistance with paying their rent, but we simply could not find housing that qualified. It's not available here. So we had a lot of discussion about the fact of the zoning issues. The city isn't the only one. The townships, the Long Lake Township where I live has a minimum 1 acre lot size. They have a minimum, I think it's 800 square feet, and many of the subdivisions and stuff that in our community are requiring 1,200 square feet, 2-car garages, and those kind of things. Those deed restrictions on the property become detrimental for people to be able to purchase the property. We had discussion at the land bank this morning about a couple lots that the township or the county treasurer foreclosed on, and that are in subdivisions, and Homestretch has expressed an interest in those properties. But I think we're going to find that those subdivision lots have deed restrictions on, which are probably not going to allow the typical Homestretch house to be constructed in those lots. So, there's a lot of reasons that people can't afford housing in our community. I drive by the new development at the corner, the WODA development at the corner of North Long Lake in Zimmerman Road every day, multiple times. There's 72 new dwelling units going in here, supposedly affordable housing. I haven't seen what the projected rent for those is going to be, but I would be willing to bet that there's a waiting list for those apartments well before they're constructed. We just simply have a huge need in our community, and I think if we believe that partnering with Homestretch and Habitat, the two local nonprofits, is going to get us to where we need to be, we're kidding ourselves. We need more discussion about partnering with for-profit developers or whatever you want to call them to help meet our housing needs in this community.
John, do you have anything? Well, thanks for all the work on that.
Thank you.
And the next would be the MOU for Johnson Controls. I will tell you that I was confused when receiving the packet for the meeting. I was unaware of any sort of agreement with Seeds that was in relationship to Johnson Controls, so there is a concern I have there. I'm not sure the genesis of that.
I
think Chris might know.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. I just wanted to echo Commissioner Kropa's thoughts. I, too, was confused. When I look at the Johnson Control Memo of Understanding, and please understand I went to MAC, and I understand that we're not hiring Johnson Control to fix our buildings, because we have public policy that we have to follow, and we're going to go out for an RFP, et cetera, et cetera. But I look at Johnson Control, and it says overall energy efficiency upgrades. I like that. Facility improvements. We need facility improvements. I would invite anyone to tour the Civic Center building. We need facility improvements. Lighting improvements, interior and exterior. I hate to give a specific example, but I will. I attend Garfield Township meetings, and when I walk into the ladies' room and open the door, the light comes on. When I walk out, I'm pretty sure shortly afterwards it automatically turns off. We do not do that in this building. I have walked in here with my little handy-dandy little pass, and lights are on. I understand that we probably have people that, security people, et cetera, and I'm sure employees are aware and turn lights off, but it just doesn't always happen. So, maybe a lighting improvement is just something in as small as, an automatic sensor in a restroom. The objective of the agreement for Johnson Control is guaranteed energy and operational savings sufficient to fund the overall improvements. That's overall improvements. Future operating cost containment. Those of us who do not want to contain future operating costs, raise your hand. We all want to contain them. And reduce overall energy usage. So I'm on board with the Johnson Control, My confusion lies with where SEEDS enters into this, and I'm not suggesting that SEEDS is not a wonderful organization, and I know that we have worked with SEEDS in the past, but I fail to see the connection, and I'm reluctant to make that connection. This is a new avenue for Grand Traverse County, what Johnson Control is doing. And I say this because at the GFOA conference, I did attend a performance contracting seminar, and I've got what Johnson Control is doing. They're basically doing performance contracting. So I do not get the connection between SEEDS, and please understand, I'm not being critical of SEEDS, but I don't see the connection between them and Johnson Control, and I'm very reluctant to make that connection. I absolutely am going to approve or I will make a motion to approve the Johnson Control memo because it's extraordinarily clear. But so therein lies my dilemma.
Can I make a presentation?
Please.
And maybe give you some background? First of all, I've been working with facilities management in terms of some of the energy efficiency improvements probably for about 6 or 7 years. Mostly because of the capacity of our department and the County Planning Commission in terms of doing capital improvements for planning for Grand Traverse County. Even prior to my engagement with facilities, SEEDS has been working with the county for a long time in terms of finding ways to improve energy efficiency. They've assisted us with some plans in terms of energy efficiency improvements, in terms of identifying opportunities. Some of those that you just mentioned, I'm pretty sure were probably mentioned in some of those documents that SEEDS prepared for us. They also have helped us manage in terms of better understanding on our energy usage. They helped us put together a portfolio manager, which we now have a good sense of understanding our energy use over time. For instance, when I was here earlier this year and presented the update to the long-range capital improvement plan, there was documentation in there in terms of our annual energy use. That was developed with the assistance of SEEDS, and they've been monitoring our use of energy over the last few years. So we kind of have a long-term arrangement with SEEDS. Their activities haven't cost us any money. We've used, in some instances, there was grants that were available, or they're often getting grant funded through other places like the State Energy Office. I've been in continuous conversations with SEEDS. They would like to assist us in doing more activities. When this was presented in last month to you, they were apprised of it. They saw it, and they wanted to assist us and to continue to assist us in terms of finding ways that we can reduce our energy costs. They offered to provide those services free of charge, similar to Johnson Controls, but not doing the activities. They're there just to assist us to kind of add capacity to our operations. There's a lot of times that there are activities that facilities are doing, or our office, that we don't have the time to do. So SEEDS is, like I said, doing the monitoring, gathering the data and information. They probably know our facilities pretty well over the last few years. This would continue that. They're really kind of just functioning as an advisor and adding capacity to our operations. They're not necessarily competing with, Johnson Controls. They're not going to be doing the same functions or anything of that of Johnson Controls. I thought it was appropriate to continue that relationship with them. I think it's been fruitful for Grand Traverse County, and I thought that they're actually being funded through, their activity is being funded through a program of the State Energy Office. They're doing this for at least one other county in our region. So this is just an opportunity to kind of continue that.
I have a question. So, John, they will be working in concert with Johnson Control, but they will not be interfering, or are they going to do a separate audit?
No, they're not doing any auditing. They're just
an energy.
And they won't necessarily be working with Johnson Controls. They'll be working with us in terms of when the findings from Johnson Controls. It gives us an opportunity just to have another set of eyes on some of those activities. And like I said, they know our facilities pretty good. I'm pretty sure we still, I talked to Danny Brown earlier today, we still report a lot of our data that we use in terms of our utility usage to them, because they're tracking this. They're tracking a lot of other communities. It helps them in terms of their studying. They're looking at the bigger picture. They're not necessarily interested specifically in some of their monitoring on our facilities, but how public government facilities are doing, what are ways that they can improve. Conservation is a big focus on them, not just energy consumption. So they're trying to track this as part of their study in terms of their focus.
Yeah, go ahead.
It sounds like that's, one of the things that I learned at GFOA last week was that we need to know these things. We need to be able to track our costs and trace these utilities and which programs they're going to in order to budget properly. So is that something they're tracking for us, for their use and for ours?
Yeah, like I mentioned, the portfolio manager that we have, Janice Lane at Facilities, can easily pull up all of our utility data. That was installed or helped by them a few years back. So
I
that
think
we
it would
can
be very
track
useful then to continue the relationship with them.
I have a question about the agreement. You say, not knowing the scope of what SEEDS has done, but it's been several years that you've been working with them here at the county as far as energy assessment. Is the scope of the work they've done in the past different than the scope of work in this pilot project agreement?
The agreement that you have in front of you is kind of a template that is being used through the State Energy Office for the activities that SEED's doing. I talked with Sarna Salzman, who's the director of SEEDS. We thought that it was sufficient enough to work for what their continued role is with Grand Traverse County. So we did not feel, there are some elements in there that we will not be performing necessarily, but we thought that it was met the intent of what to continue the relationship. So
Why do we need a signed agreement when we haven't had one for all these years for the work that they've done?
we've had agreements with them for previous activities.
We're not currently under an agreement?
No, other than the only thing right now is the reporting that was set up a few years ago. So they have done stuff, but previously, prior years, those activities all did involve an agreement. Once those projects were done, the agreement will dissolve, similar to, this current MOU. It'll dissolve at some point based on their activity. If we want to pursue them to do additional work at some point, that would require a new agreement.
I am having a hard time finding an end date for this agreement.
It's September 18th.
That's the end date?
Yeah, that's, I believe, is the date of the program through the State Energy Office.
So this agreement is just binding through September 18th? Okay. And this agreement doesn't affect our audit by Johnson Controls in any way?
No.
Okay, they just happen to come up simultaneously.
They will function as an advisor for us. I think it's helpful to get a second opinion on some of the things, and I'm not saying, questioning Johnson Controls even before they start the work, but SEEDS has a good understanding of our facilities. They've been in them, they've seen what we've been working on the last few years. It's just an advisor type of role.
Okay, because we are, if we do vote to enter into an MOU with Johnson Controls, there's two parties in that, Grand Traverse County and Johnson Controls, and there isn't a third party involved in that understanding. So it would be important to me before I vote on a memorandum of understanding with the business that we are not putting a third party into that agreement without their knowledge or agreement to that as well. So as long as the SEEDS MOU is not in any way making them an unofficial third party to the MOU with Johnson Controls, I assume that it's fine then. But that it makes me hesitant to vote on either one of them because of that.
Dave is in the audience with Johnson Control. Can we bring him up?
That would be wonderful. I just want to make sure everybody is on the same page
I do too.
before we vote on anything.
Before I hand the mic over to Dave, I just want to mention that the MOU was reviewed by Prosecuting Attorney Bob Cooney, and that there is one additional phrase that they would like to add into that, so.
Is this for the Johnson one or the Seeds one?
Johnson. Yeah.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi. So Dave, I'm sorry. Are you okay with your understanding of what this MOU is?
Yeah, I met Sarna today. I stopped, I stopped in her office today, and I was trying to just get an understanding of what their involvement was. And obviously, John's going to be spearheading a lot of this as he and I interact. But I met with Sarna today. My concern was what is the relationship? And in Sarna's in discussion with her, it's really directed by John. But at the end of the day, as John's controls, as we dig into your buildings and figure out, where the savings are going to be and what type of project we could potentially build off of this, a lot of that directive is going to come up from John, and we'll be reporting to John and you guys as well. And it just what John said is that Seeds is going to be an extra set of eyes on it, probably looking at some of our formulas and things like that.
And I appreciate you having met with Sarna, and I appreciate that you are going to be that John is going to be the leader. So I'm good.
Yeah.
As long as all parties are good, it's good. We should,
Yeah, they're putting an extra set of eyes on it, and they're helping John do his due diligence. I was curious as to some of the bullet points in there, and John had talked that not everything is necessarily applicable as to what they're necessarily offering. Is that fair? Okay.
And as far as from the prosecutor's standpoint, if we vote to approve this, do we need to put the caveat for an additional sentence in the motion?
The only thing I added to the Johnson's Control MOU was that there would be no obligation to enter into a project development agreement under the initial phase of the program.
Okay.
What they call the preliminary analysis phase.
Okay. No obligation to enter into a project agreement?
Yeah, I just felt it should be perfectly clear that that's part of the agreement.
Oh, it's part of the MOU. Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. And then you guys will vote if you want to jump into a preliminary or a project development agreement.
Correct.
We would amend it. We would amend it as recommended by.
Well, that'll be a separate document altogether.
Yeah.
Anyway. So we'll deliver the preliminary investigation, and then you guys will say, does this make sense? And then the next step would be the project development agreement. Yeah. Okay.
Is that what you?
The only thing the board is agreeing to is to make their facilities available, their
Correct.
documents, records available.
That's
for
all.
Johnson to examine and inspect, and to, in good faith, review their summary of findings and decide whether they want to go forward with a project development agreement.
So we don't need to have the change in this specific document that we're voting on?
No, I'm recommending that you do add that.
Add it in this
I gave the language
document.
to John, and if you want to approve it with that change.
We can do that. Sonny?
Well, I think it's, last month when we discussed this, I think it was last month, when we discussed this with Johnson Control before, I made reference to the fact that we'd done much of this previous, and I think it's interesting to note, and I think it's important to note, that the information that Seeds has provided us with is going to be a key piece of the information that Johnson Control is going to need. I'm sure that we're going to get new information, which may not be exactly the same as what we had, but we'll be able to compare the results. We've made a lot of changes in our buildings over the last 4 or 5 years to help our energy efficiency, and hopefully this will help us document that there actually has been an improvement.
Well, I think we're looking at improving it a lot more than it is. I mean, I don't think we need to look back in the past on every single thing that we do. We recognize and acknowledge the work of employees and commissioners in the past at every move that we make, but it doesn't change where we are today. And where we are today is where I believe we have significant chance for changing the energy efficiency of our structures.
Absolutely.
So we don't, every single one of it, just because you're moving forward with a new project doesn't mean that you're discounting what was done in the past. And there is a consistent theme of that here, and I believe it's holding us back from moving forward. And as our chairwoman says all the time, we're looking out a windshield, not a rear view mirror. With that, I will move to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Johnson Controls with the amendment suggested by our prosecutor.
Support. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, come on, let's let Dan talk.
Wake up, Dan, come on.
Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah. Okay, moved by Kopus, supported by Lathrop. Any discussion at all? And you are understanding about the addition to the memorandum and, okay. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. I will,
Was that just the Johnson Controls?
yes,
Okay,
I will
thanks.
move on next to the seeds agreement. If there are any questions by commissioners to John, anything additional that you're interested in? Okay, anyone else? Okay.
I will make the motion to enter into MOU with Seeds as presented in our packet.
I second it.
He's quicker this
By Max Bauer, seconded by Lathrop. Was there any discussion on seeds at all? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And thank you to Johnson Controls and Seeds.
All right.
I'm,
And John Syke.
And of course, Mr. Syke, who doesn't get to leave because he's going to do a show and tell on his time in Philadelphia as well later on. It's a long day for John, so thank you. On to the county staff report. Was there anyone that wanted to bring up any questions or anything? Otherwise, I would stand just as presented. I did want to say whoever is doing the color photos, thank you. I liked the rabid dog photo with the animal control section from the health department. It made the staff report a little bit more exciting, so thank you. But I did enjoy reading all of that, and it's great to have it all in one place. And it is nice for all of us as we go to our individual townships and villages and city to make reports. On to the Road Commission contract amendment under unfinished business. Mr. Coon.
This is an amendment to your August 21st, 2013 agreement providing for construction of the Cass Road Bridge and Cass Road right-of-way by the Road Commission and County, respectively. It's my understanding that the agreement has been approved by the Road Commission. I see Mr. Cook is here. He could speak to that. If the board approves this amendment, we are extending the agreement, which would otherwise expire on August 23rd, 2015, because I don't think anyone has any hope there will be any substantial construction occurring on the project by then. The amendment includes, as I understand it, Mr. Cook would have better numbers, but about $500,000 in additional funding to be provided by the Road Commission by way of the Road Commission providing construction engineering and a 5% local match included in the funding. We have discussed this with the Road Commission's attorney, and we've tried to make sure we're clear on what funding means. We've added a definition of what construction engineering includes, and I'm satisfied that this agreement meets with the discussion that was had at the last meeting of this board where this amendment was discussed. So,
Did anyone want to begin the discussion? Bob.
I was just going to make a motion that we accept the Road Commission amendment, Cass Road right-of-way development agreement as amended, or as presented.
Okay. Any discussion? You know I'm going to discuss it, right? Does anyone want to discuss it before me? Because
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I am not going to support the amendment. I won't be voting on this. My reason was further cemented Friday when I attended the Boardman River Dam's project managers meeting. The way that the projects are done, they come in with 30% designs, 60% designs, and final designs. And the Cass Road Bridge, at the time that we had information presented to us not that long ago, was operating on estimates based on a 30% design, and that was fine. But we were also talking about that same level of estimates for Part B. Part A, of course, is the bridge. Part B is the road that leads to the bridge along with the dam removal and river restoration. At that time, not that long ago, we were given the estimate of $7.1 million. And we understand that all funds not raised on Part B will be paid for by the county. The 60% design was submitted since then, and we have new numbers. The new number is now $8 million for Part B and climbing. We're not done yet on the estimates for Part B, and it will continue with the final design plan. And the reason I don't support this is because I specifically wanted to see the definition of road commission development and county development change to allow us the opportunity to seek every potential source for partnership and funding for Part B when and if we do not raise the $8 million that they're saying now, which was 7.1. It is an incredibly lofty goal to raise $8 million. It's putting, CRA is exhausting efforts to raise these funds, and we're only not even halfway through this project. We're not even really a third of the way through this project dollar-wise. To date, according to Chuck Lombardo, we have raised $2.2 million towards the $8 million for Part B. That leaves a funding gap of over $5 million. And when that $5 million, or whatever the funding gap is, comes to be, when a bridge has already been built and we have no road to go to it, they will come to the County Board of Commissioners. And we will not have the money. And they will suggest bonding for the money, as Frankfurt just did, to pay for their dam project. And I will not support bonding for the dam project either. What I will support is having a partnership of the people that ultimately came together and made a decision to remove these dams, and that includes the City of Traverse City, the Grand Traverse Band, and in my opinion, and I've said this from the beginning, roads and bridges are the road commission. And this contract does not allow us to seek any funding for the road portion of Part B from the road commission. And I can't in good conscience support that. I feel it is quite unlikely that the fundraising goal will be met of the $8 million for Part B. And I don't think I'm alone in that thought, and that is not a reflection on the fundraisers once again. It's a reflection on the fact that it's an amazingly difficult feat to reach. Really, this is an unprecedented fundraising project in Grand Traverse County. And when it was entered into over a decade ago, I don't believe that the brevity of the situation was ever absorbed by those that were part of it. Not with this board. And I'm not going to sit and be a part of that ignorance of a debt anymore. Another problem I have with this is that the Cass Road Bridge was originally brought in because it's in trouble. The road is in trouble on top of the dam. And the Road Commission did as the Road Commission should have and was responsible and sought out funding with the Michigan Department of Transportation for a critical bridge grant. Now, critical bridge grant is only for replacing existing structures. Therefore, it could not have been applied to any other part of the river, just a river crossing at Cass Road. We understood that. And when it became aware that they had done this and that it was a potential match for the Army Corps of Engineers grant for the dam removal process, the two were married. Because it made sense. At that point, it was a financial benefit for us to get $3.088 million of a 3.5 required match for the Army Corps grant, which is $10 million. That would have easily funded us through Part B and all of what we needed. But in 2014, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers said no to the Cass Road Critical Bridge Grant as a match. And we were back to square one. And what I don't understand is why at that time we didn't separate these again. If this was a bridge over anywhere else, you know, little pond in Kingsley or I don't know what, the Road Commission would be building it and paying for it. If it was a road leading to a bridge anywhere else, it wouldn't have ever come before the county board. But the county board entered into an agreement with the Road Commission because there was an understanding that it was going to be a match for a $20 million plus dam project. Makes sense to me. But at that time, when the IT found out it wasn't a match, it is beyond me why nobody informed the party liable for the debt that they now are signed up to pay for a road and a bridge that isn't a match for a project that they're on the hook for. And at that time, I came before the Board of Commissioners in 2013 as a citizen and said, don't do this. So as I sit here as a commissioner, I'm no different than when I was a citizen, and I'm going to say don't do this. I would have loved to have seen this definition changed because I wanted to vote for this. But I can't as it sits. And that is not in any way a reflection on my opinion of the road commission, because that's not what this is. Unfortunately, they're a side effect in a larger thing, because next year, or a year and a half later, when they come to the Board of Commissioners and say, guess what, we didn't raise the funds for Part B, I'm going to make sure that the county has every opportunity to seek out partners in that funding. This isn't just our project. This was a project with the city and the band and a lot of other community partners. Now, in 2 weeks, you will hear Kim Balke from CRA come before this board with hopefully Carl Platts from the Army Corps of Engineers to present to us the two options we have, which is either to use the Army Corps grant of $10 million for the dam project or not to. Now, of course, understanding that if we accept the $10 million grant with the Army Corps, we are required to provide a $3.5 million match. Now, here's the interesting thing. That match can only come from local funds. So if we don't reach the local fund raising goal of $3.5 million, which, by the way, we haven't yet in this project, we can't get our $10 million anyway, so then what do we do? And Carl and Kim will do I know they'll do a great job of explaining the options to this board and letting everyone weigh them as they are. But, you know, going to that meeting last week identified to me that we are going to potentially and more probably be in a situation where we are seeking funding partners for this project in the next year. And this contract doesn't allow us to do that with the Road Commission. Again, I wouldn't ever ask the Road Commission to pay for a dam removal or river restoration. But the portion of Part B that is a road and the portion of the infrastructure changes that are made simply to accommodate a road that aren't part of the dam removal, I absolutely would like to retain the ability to seek out a partnership with them as we did this year. They will be coming forward and explaining all of that to us. But there is, of the local match potentials, there is only one that could possibly help us reach our goals with the Army Corps grant, and that is the Great Lake Fisheries Trust, which is a local funded trust out of Ludington. Other than that, it's going to be very difficult to reach this goal. So I want to make sure that my no vote is known, that it is not in any way in relationship to the Road Commission, and not a reflection of my appreciation of their time and effort with this agreement. But I won't sit here next year when they come forward and know that I voted on this, and when I threw away the opportunity to help fund it. We simply cannot bond for this, and we can't pay for it out of our general fund. Bob?
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready to move forward on this, and people I represent, you know, I don't know if, but a handful have told me they don't want the bridge.
Bob, the bridge
and unfortunately, I do feel that we are going to end up bonding. I mean, we're host. We are stuck. We are stuck in this county with a plan to remove this dam without a lot of forethought. There's no way, and I don't want to sound negative, but there's no way they're going to raise that much money. They've done a commendable job for what they have raised,
Yes,
but
they
it is quite the obstacle to get the rest of that. And I think we're going to seriously have to look at what revenue stream we have. Like I said, I'm ready to move forward on this agreement. I'm just ready to put that part to bed. And I know what you are saying about finances. I mean, as you talked earlier today about the MERS came out.
We're up to $45,800,000 and change.
For the unfunded pension obligation. So financially we're in trouble, I think, in this county. A lot of people don't think we are, and the dam removal is going to be something we're going to seriously have to look at funding sources. But I do support this agreement. So.
You know, one of the things that I provided to Commissioner Krupa and also to CRA was the memorandum of understanding. And I mentioned this to you, Commissioner, Commissioners Max Bauer and Lathrop. But we do have partners in this. The City of Traverse City has signed on to that memorandum of understanding, as well as the Grand Traverse Band. There's also, it's not definite by any means, but we are working with the other federal granting agencies to see if their dollars can be used to satisfy the 35% match. So CRA, they've done an outstanding job for us. We don't have this problem solved, but, you know, at any given time, the next time the state comes up and does an inspection of the dams, they could say, Grand Traverse County, you haven't demonstrated a good faith effort to remove those dams as you have been instructed to do. So we could be, in theory, we could be hit with the entire bill at some point in time. I'm probably not saying that as well as I could, but, you know, that's the reality. We have the cost. We still have to explore all of our options for funding that 35% match. I mean, the Army Corps, it comes with a cost. I mean, that local match is a monumental hurdle to overcome. And having only, I think the Great Lakes Fisheries Trust, which is some settlement with Consumers Power, is $500,000.
Yep.
I mean, so technically then, you know, the 3.5 is down to 3. That's still a huge funding gap. But I would, you know, we're going to continue to look at our options here to fund that. I'm not so sure the Army Corps is going to work for us because of that. But, you know, the only other option is to continue to seek out, you know, grant sources and opportunities, and causes me a lot of concern. I mean, the plan from previous boards all along was to hope that the grant funding would fully, we're still working on that. We're not able at this point in time to tell you that we've accomplished that, but I know CRA and the implementation team are going to do everything they can to help us do that.
Well, I have faith in that as well. It's just, I think we're irresponsible if we don't have a plan B. It's not our money. Dan?
This is a kind of a side note. That's why when you think about GFOA, like step one is get a grip on reality financially. How much do you make? How much do you think you'll be bringing in every year? And how much do you think you're going to have to spend? And we've got our $44 million plus unfunded liability. We have another, what, 8 or 9 million OPEB. And this dams project is an unfunded liability. And so that's why sometime soon I'd like to have our auditing firm put this all together for us and project it out 10 years. So that we can look at it and say, you know, like you said, we're in trouble. We've had all kinds of officials tell us our county's not in trouble. Sounds like we are in trouble. I'd like to know how much trouble we're in exactly as we can come to it. So I'm just campaigning, not for this issue so much, but pretty soon I'd like to see some real documents that we can present to the public once and for all to show that we have some troubles we have to fix. And this is what it looks like.
Anyone else at all? Did anyone have any questions for Mr. Cook since he took the time to sit through this whole meeting? Okay.
Jim, did you have any comments you wanted to make?
No, I know better than to ask that, but I did offer you up for questions to answer. Commissioner Maxbauer.
Well, many years ago, at least it feels like many years ago, I did not vote for the original agreement because, in my view, the original agreement wrote a blank check at Grand Traverse County's expense. I didn't support it the first time, and I don't support it this time for those reasons.
Anyone else at all? Okay, I will call for a roll call since it's fairly obvious it won't be unanimous.
Klaus?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Maxbauer?
No.
Lathrop?
No.
Johnson?
Yes.
Crawford?
Yes.
Kropa?
No.
Passed.
We're all done. Thank you, Jim, for taking the time to come, and Andy as well. We don't want to forget about our road commissioner. He just likes it because it's a party at the board.
Although this is just, this goes to the full board. This is just a recommendation that goes to the full board. So you'll see it again.
Oh, boy.
Community policing officers contract, Dean?
This will be coming to you, the contracts will be coming next to Ways and Means. Just an update. I've received one from Garfield today, and Glenn Lyle has provided a draft as well, and they're coming back. That's next week, right? You'll see them soon.
And before they come to the board, the prosecutor's office will? Okay.
Yes.
In his spare time.
In your spare time.
I looked at it.
I just want to expedite it so we don't have to put you on the spot and call you back. Okay, on to Dean, the URS invoice.
Yeah, Chris had actually touched base with them, and we do plan on bringing that invoice to you later this month at your board meeting. We do not, have not received it back yet, so.
Okay. Great.
I get, to go back to the road commission, I'm not going to be here for the general meeting, so I don't know if we want to go ahead and resolve this tonight.
Because you just...
It's obvious it'll be 3 and 3.
I was just going to say, you just calculated it was going to be a tie. Oh, you figured it out,
Yes.
Dr. Bob. I should
know.
have known.
I know it's, I mean, say again?
There's
No.
I mean, I don't know if those that voted yes are going to change and those that voted no are going to change, so I don't know. It's up to...
We're fairly stubborn people. I would ask our prosecutor for a recommendation or our finance director. I don't know what entitles immediate approval and how that would... I mean, could our vote tonight just count as...
You mean, you're talking about the road commission?
Bob's going to be gone for the next 2 meetings.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Well, you'd have to vote all over again to make it a final vote.
But it'll be 3 to 3.
No, we're all here.
We do it
right now. Got it.
If there were going to be a motion for immediate approval tonight, you'd have to vote on
Redo
that
it.
separately.
See, this just seems silly because we know what the vote's going to be. It seems kind of- seems
So
kind
someone
of-
needs to make a motion.
It seems kind of wrong.
I suppose unless someone isn't absolutely certain they want to approve it tonight, so.
Right.
I don't understand. What's
Well,
the problem?
This is going to go, may I?
Please.
All right, this is going to
Explain it
go,
to me.
all right, this is going to go to the full board
Right.
for approval.
Right,
Right now, it's a 4-3 vote.
yeah.
Bob is going to be gone. When it is made a motion at the end of the month, if no one changes their mind, it is a tie vote and it will fail.
Yeah.
Consequently, if someone in the majority wants to make a motion for immediate approval, that's about the only way it's going to pass this month.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the, put my glasses on,
Excuse me.
the road commission Cass Road agreement for immediate approval.
Support.
You're killing me.
I got a
thought I was
headache.
so
I got a
clever.
headache.
No, you're not. Oh, we're all clever.
At least we can all disagree in good humor.
Can I persuade anyone in the next 2 minutes?
No.
We'll go ahead and call for a roll call vote. Again.
Okay.
Here we go, Bonnie.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
No.
Lathrop?
No.
Johnson?
Yes.
Crawford?
Yes?
Klaus?
Yes.
Kropa?
No.
No, it's official.
It's official. It's official that
Approved
next year
for
I can say
immediate
I told
effect.
you so.
I know you will.
Fine.
It's not going to be pretty.
That's fine.
No matter what it's not. So.
It's never pretty.
No, this is not going to be. Okay. On to
Move along.
new business, which is GFOA, which we have Dean here and John, and the 3 of us commissioners that attended. And I sent an email from Philadelphia because I wanted to get moving. I'm tired of talking. I'd like to do something. But with Dr. Bob's vacation, and obviously we all have real lives and full-time jobs, it was hard to do anything prior to Bob's departure tomorrow morning. So at least if we could start by sharing what we learned quickly. I had hoped to do it more in a study session and invite staff and other board members, but we have lots of time for that sort of thing. As far as Mike Muha, I think you wanted to speak.
I do. Thank you.
Yeah.
You all received my email, and I want to thank you all for not responding so that we did not violate any laws. And I will read it to the public. It is, and I sent this June 5th. It is time to begin. As we look at the scope of work, which we have already approved with Mr. Muha and GFOA, Task 1 is GFOA will provide a one-day training session for county staff and other stakeholders on the results budgeting process. The training will be focused on the practitioner perspective and provide an overview of the process, case study examples, lessons learned, and practical tips. This presentation will focus on options and decisions necessary for structuring a solid process, and that is absolutely what we need. I would like to get Mr. Muha here tomorrow. However, when I saw him at the GFOA conference, he said, please do not ask me on a Friday to show up on a Monday. But he said, I pretty much am flexible. We are all the stakeholders. Whether you can break away or not is certainly up to your schedule, but I would like to schedule Mr. Muha to come as quickly as is practicable. I want to get started. And I will talk briefly about why I want to get started. You know, one of the best speakers, I attended 14, I believe, 14 different sessions at GFOA. And one of the best speakers, actually I think Dean and I agree on this, was the mayor of Philadelphia. He is not a Republican, but when he took office, which was maybe about 7 plus years ago, he said he walked into office and he just had all these wonderful plans. And the city was, he was just going to do all this good stuff. And he said in the first 6 months, his staff started to come to him and say, you know, we see a little trouble on the horizon, financially, fiscally. And he quoted Mike Tyson, who said, you know, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And the mayor of Philadelphia said he got punched in the face. And as he spoke, it became clear to me that he used GFOA best practices to dig himself out of the hole. In various degrees, I heard other municipalities that are in the process of digging themselves out of their hole with GFOA best practices. So I would like to get started as quickly as possible. I don't really know other than to say, let's everybody get your calendars out and see if we can't pick 2 or 3 dates and invite Mr. Muha here. If anyone has any other ideas, and Dean, if you've got any, please speak up, because obviously we need staff and department heads, et cetera, here. And here comes John.
I say we should have just given him a
Wow,
better to
stepping
give him
right
a
up
seat.
there.
If I could speak, I guess when I studied the proposal that GFOA presented, and I think that looking at that task 1, it mentions about county staff and other stakeholders. Obviously, this board is really kind of the initial lead on this, but I think it's imperative to really engage county staff, which at least initially would be your department heads, could be some other supervisors and others, certainly your other elected officials within county government you want to engage at this point. I would, and I think it's really important, first impressions are really important in these types of processes. I know there's been a lot of discussion amongst everybody, not just here with the board, but also within the departments and so forth and others. And I think there's a lot of anticipation. I think there's a lot of curiosity and wondering really what this process is going to entail. So I think it's really important that when you make that first step, and I think this is a great scope of work to start the process, I think it's really important that you want to get everybody there that you want to be, and you want to get them engaged. I think what I would suggest in terms of the scheduling of this, I think is going to be really important. And I would suggest that maybe you have some type of a committee of some staff people and some of the commissioners to work with Mr. Muha in scheduling this so that we get the best turnout possible, as well as getting...
We're pointing at John.
Are you volunteering?
I'm just volunteering.
You just
well,
volunteered.
Yeah, I'll certainly assist, but I think you're going to want, and Dean, certainly I think you want to engage maybe some of the other departments, as well as some of your representation from this board, and talk with Mr. Muha about scheduling this and figuring out, I mean, one of the challenges I know in my work is that summer months are tricky because everybody's busy, people are leaving town, that type of thing. So I think how this rolls out, how you get this, like I said, that first impression is important because I think there are some really elements here. I think probably once people get a better understanding of it, I think they'll recognize the value of it. I think partly some of these people are kind of questioning, what it is and everything like that. And certainly at the conference, we've seen some successes by some communities around the country that really took this to heart and have really had very good success with it. I think, though, also it was, in many cases, I noticed that it was a long process, and sometimes they didn't get it quite right the first time. Whatever happens has to be something that is done by the county as an organization, working with its stakeholders and so forth. And it really you have to tailor it to whatever fits this organization. The key to doing that is utilizing your staff as part of that, to empower them so that you're not carrying the torch, but you got a bunch of other people carrying the torch as well. So I would just suggest that in terms of kicking it off, and is to, and that group, that little committee could kind of work with Mr. Muha through the process, making adjustments as you need be, because while this scope of work is really about a 2-month scope of work, you're really also looking beyond that. You're looking next year and the year before, so you kind of want to be thinking, while you're in the short term here for this first step, you're thinking all the following up steps that you're going to have to do to carry it forward. And you want to do that in concert with everybody else.
Well, I couldn't agree more with what you said, which was why it was so important that we had staff and commissioners going to that conference. One thing that was funny at the conference, though, was we were some of very few elected officials that were there, which were the butt of almost every single joke and every presentation that I saw.
So Dean is smiling.
They felt they needed to dumb things down.
It was a lot of accountants, but it was so interesting to listen to, and this was time and time again. This wasn't every once in a while.
Yeah.
Every class.
The financial officers in the government and the staff trying to beg the elected officials to be more transparent and trying to, convince them this is good, you want to do this. And here we are, these elected officials that are just saying, give us a chance, to the staff, let us show you. Everything was
we're going elected official here.
Everything was so flip-flopped, and, we wore our badges, and of course, mine said commissioner, and I got a lot of funny looks and questions and stuff, particularly the first day there. It was interesting. But, that I wrote an email to all of you, and I talked about our team. This is not the elected officials and the staff and the citizens. This is now a team. We're all the same people in this process together, and it doesn't work without all three elements of it. So when I envisioned the meeting that I had emailed about, that was a meeting inviting every board in our county, the Road Commission, the BPW, the Commission on Aging, the different townships and villages, the City Commission, everybody coming to a meeting where we talked about what budgeting for outcomes or priority-based budgeting, or I think we could come up with 27 different terms for it that I heard, and let everyone see that at once, because John is correct. I think once the message gets out appropriately, the value will be embraced by everybody in it. It makes a staff person's job better. It makes a citizen's money used better. And it makes an elected official's job better. So there isn't a loser in this process at all. It was really I'm just so glad that I went, and I'm so appreciative of Dean and John's time leaving, their work and home for 5 days, or 6 or 7, depending on the seminar I know that John was at, and it was critical to it. So I agree with John that maybe we will just have a committee that can move forward, and this committee is comprised of a team of people, not just the Board of Commissioners, so that makes sense to me as well. I did hear back from Socrata today.
Me too.
I would invite anybody at home, particularly our staff, but any citizens interested, to go to the City of Chattanooga's website. They're the most recent one to utilize Socrata in this way. What we're talking about is a completely interactive type of government where every single thing, except for public safety measures, obviously, that for security reasons can't be transparent, everything else will be transparent. And one of the hearts of this, once the data is collected, and as Dan mentioned, when we really have a grasp on what we owe and what we make and all of that, you then are able to put this data out to the citizens. So someone sitting at home in Whitewater Township can pull up the county checkbook, and they can see that we wrote a check to Elmer's for the Lafreniere Road project. And it will be linked to the resolution by the board that allowed the funding to happen, and all of the different people that were involved in it. And they can see all of the different elements of just this project. And then as you zoom out, you go to what percentage of the road commission's spending for that year is Lafreniere Road. How did Garfield Township and the county play into it? All of this is formed in one massive database with this. I was so impressed with it that I asked the people to come to Grand Traverse County on their dime to do a presentation to us, and I so want to do it in a place where we can facilitate having staff and citizens and other board members just get an idea of what other cities are doing and counties. Kalamazoo is doing this. We looked at York County was one of the examples, and Minnesota. What was the city in Minnesota? I know it's in my notes. It is an incredible process that they are under. And for instance, talking about FOIA, instead of the consistent FOIA and the media calls for information, all they do is look it up. How many people wrote speeding tickets in Whitewater Township in the month of July? It'll be on there. It'll interact all of these different facets so that somebody sitting at home at 3 in the morning that can't sleep could look up an answer to what's going on with their money.
I can't help myself. I just like.
I know. So anyway.
I was like this at Garfield. They almost couldn't shut me up.
I chose not to speak after you. Because of
Supervisor Corns in the back row nodding.
I
emailed everybody and let everybody know that there was a live stream demo on Socrata yesterday afternoon. And I did attend I think it was yesterday, I lose track of my days. Anyway, I did watch it. And one of the things that truly impressed me is the way Socrata allows all of the citizens to innovate. What Seattle has done, and please understand, Socrata, and there are other software programs out there. The only reason I'm talking about Socrata is it's the only one I know about right now. But what Socrata does is they will tailor, their software is specifically for public transparency. That's number one. Number two, they can tailor their software to suit the organization. For instance, Grand Traverse County is not the size and/or is it growing like Seattle is. But what it allows the people to do is, instead of having just innovators inside the organization. It makes all of the information public. And suddenly, we have 90,000 residents who can be innovators. And what innovators have done with that data on their own is, in different municipalities, they have created apps that tell individuals or show people, for instance, where a crime is being held, in what neighborhood, and at what time, most of the time. In other words, for instance, if you have, I don't know, Jones Street, and that's a heavy crime area at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the citizens know that based upon the data, the open data sets that are available to the public. Well, they write apps, and guess who is using this particular app? The police are using this app, and crime, with those apps, the crime statistics are falling. You can tell if it's a burglary. You can tell, whether it's just a speeding ticket in these particular areas. What Seattle has done, and this was on the live stream, what Seattle has done is they created a contest where they brought geeks in, and I call them geeks because they're, I don't know, I think of the Best Buy Geek Squad, the people
They call
that
themselves
actually,
geeks.
yeah, well, people that actually know what they're doing. And Seattle created a contest because they have a transportation problem in the city of Seattle. And they showed, oddly enough, pictures of streets with orange barrels in them, and they asked different teams to build apps to solve their transportation problems. And they will be announcing the winner of this particular app at City Hall. But this is at no cost to the taxpayer. This allows everybody in the community who happens to know how to create an app or whatever, or use this information, to use it productively. I heard Chris Barshef at Garfield last night saying how he's taking all this time to analyze the data as to where these different traffic incidents are occurring in Garfield Township and where best to use his forces. And this is taking him a great deal of time. If we have transparent open data sets, this information is going to be right at his fingertips, and I'm going to try to not talk anymore. I'm going to calm down and hush.
Well, I did want to ask the board if it was okay if I responded to, Kara is her name, and invite them to ask our staff if they can come and do a presentation of what things they can do. And I did look up the website. It was Results Minnesota. It was the city of Minneapolis. Their website for their city is called Results Minnesota, and it's the results. Every single year, they gauge what each citizen got for the dollars that they spent. What are the results? What's your return on investment? It opens up the government into just, it's everybody, the pool, for instance. People want to go to this meeting Monday, I will be there, where Christine will share pool financial data. Nobody would have, it would be right there. And if you decide that a pool is a priority for you, all of the information's there. How many hours a week do people lifeguard? And what are the lifeguards paid? You can click onto the payroll system and see what people make. They're getting paid with your money. It is an absolutely amazing system, and I think it's critical to moving forward. The fundamental thing I learned in Philadelphia is we are woefully behind in technology. Although it is a strategic plan, high up on the strategic plan for the County Board of Commissioners, we have been very neglectful in the field of technology. And basically what that says to our employees is, good luck getting your job done with the tools that we're giving you. And we heard a very compelling speech by our prosecutor a few months ago as to why he desperately needed that software upgrade and the change it's going to make for him and his job and his staff. Well, we have a lot of other departments that need that help too. This is going to change and make all of their jobs better and give us the data that we need to ask the citizens, prioritize our programs. Where do you want to spend your money? Because we don't know right now. And it's not the fault of anyone. It's that I really feel that it's because we are lacking in technology and the ability to even create these sort of programs. So that's the first step I think we're going to talk about with that. So if it's okay for me to contact them back, would anybody, be interested in having them come show what they can do.
You're getting nods from
Please,
Carol and I.
please check out Results Minnesota, the city of Palo Alto, California, another great one, Chattanooga, Kalamazoo.
Keep in mind, it's at their expense
It's
that
at
they're
their
coming. And
expense.
we do not have to
We
buy
have
their
zero
software.
obligation with them at all.
There are others.
But I think once I really want citizens to be involved in this and see what government can be. We met people from 49 other states that know what government can be. But up here, we have no idea that this even exists. And I think we're doing ourselves a disservice, but mostly our citizens and our staff, by not moving forward with it.
Well, I think one comment I got is if you and Carol and Christine don't get excited about this, I don't think anybody else will.
I just haven't been given a chance.
You will get called in, but we're not, I needed to get approval to respond to the email. I explained to her that we have an open meetings policy. She didn't understand why I hadn't gotten back, and I said, I can't ask 7 of my board members.
She called me and I didn't call her back either.
So I told her we hadn't met as a full board since we've been home from Philadelphia, so I wanted to make sure that I at least allowed that.
But I want you to know that not more than 2 hours after I watched that live stream video, I got a phone call.
Big brother.
Their software is that good. But one of the things I wanted to clarify that you said Christine is going to give.
Christine Erickson.
Thank you, because I will be at the city commission meeting Monday night.
Christine Erickson will be there.
And perhaps we ought to look at a large open space where we can have a meeting, and I don't know that the training room will be big enough. It may or may not be, especially as far as when the committee takes a look at involving everybody in the community, because, John, you're exactly right. We need to do this correctly, and we need to get people excited about the possibilities and the opportunities here, not only staff, but the public. So the only thing that comes to mind that's big enough is Howe Arena.
Well, I think the Civic Center room would probably be good for bringing someone in like a Socrata and that kind of thing. And I would really like to see the different townships and villages and cities join together. But what I mostly want to see is the staff there. Just to get an idea, thousands and thousands of staff members across the country are part of this kind of transparent process, and it would be really neat for them to get to see it. Dan?
Well, I think, should we today try to put together that group that will decide the date and place? Can we do that today? Okay.
We need Dean and John.
Dean and John.
Yeah, well, first of all, Dean and John, I'm so glad you guys went. Thank you so much. You took a lot of your valuable time. I'm really impressed you both went. And we sure do need your help. So I'm glad you're on board.
Sonny?
I guess I'm a little bit confused. In my mind, we're talking about two separate things. We're talking about Mr. Muha and the GFOA thing, and then we're talking about the Socrates group. You know?
Right.
And I read all of the emails, and I understand the difference. What I'm trying to figure out is what kind of a time frame are we talking about? Because I think they're two separate meetings.
They are.
They are.
You know, so, I agree that if we're going to invite in the road commission, the townships and everything else, this facility simply isn't large enough. You know, we all know that. Yes, we have the ability to televise from here, but we can figure out a way to televise from somewhere else also. But, I'm just trying to figure out a timeline. I don't want to get the cart before the horse. Do we get the Socrata thing first, or do we get the GFOA thing first?
Well, the GFOA scope was already approved,
Right.
but part of that is decisions that are based on data, and we are lacking data. So the process will be burdensome to the staff of starting data collection.
Yeah, but you're not going
But
to
not
have,
step one.
you're not going to have that data instantly just because
Nope.
you enter into something
No, but-
else. But, so my point is, if we're going to do the GFOA thing, and we're going to continue to move forward, we need to be moving forward with that, not be going in a different direction necessarily with the Socrata thing, with the idea that we need more data. Well, absolutely, we probably need more data, but we can't wait for that data to move forward with the other.
In order to purchase a software program, we would need to have the time to do RFPs and look at the different options out there. And if we're looking at doing that for the 2016 fiscal year, we need to start on that process now. So you're right, it is two separate ideas. But here's the interesting thing about how they tie together. This particular type of software program was fundamental to all of the different classes and things that we learned. And that's because that's what governments are using now. So if you were to watch, say, a presentation by them, you would learn about budgeting for outcomes too at the same time, because you would see the process right out in front of you in user-friendly terms rather than just a discussion on the steps of the GFOA. I think it's just a visual way to make a point and show people this is what we could be. This is where we want to go. I think that steps are important, but I also thought that the visual of seeing the presentation of the software showed us where we could be when we're done. And I think that to get people excited and get them on board and show the staff what they can be a part of and the citizens, I think it's valuable, but you're absolutely correct. It's two separate things. We're talking about a committee to work with Mr. Mulha and start that process. But I'm saying we have a group willing to come here for free and just show us what results-based budgeting looks like in all of these different types of municipalities. What a great visual presentation. And we're under no obligation, but we can then, when we start talking about fiscal year 16, which is coming up, we can talk about the potential of software, or maybe that's a fiscal year 17, but that's still this board. I mean, whether we discuss it this year or next. And that can always be in our head while we're working through the sequential steps of the GFOA process with MUHA. And I thought, for me, I'm a very low-tech person, it was incredibly beneficial to see these websites. They're dumbed down, for a lack of a better term, which is perfect for me. And I listened to people talk about budgeting, but when I saw it, it changed everything. And I would like other people to have that opportunity at no cost to the taxpayers. Carol, I know that you want to speak, and then I'd like Dean to.
Do you have something else?
No.
Get the 3-minute thing going.
I was going to point, I was basically going
I
to
know
point.
she's angry. I'm trying to calm her down, but but he had a really good point. I didn't mean to muddy the waters, but she's emailed me 3 times in the last 4 days, so I was like, I've got to do this now.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Yeah, go.
Okay. I think I can clarify it a little bit for you. I think that the first thing that we should do with Mr. Mulha is the education piece, which I think what you're talking about. Talking to department heads and interested employees, and we need to share what we learned. We need to educate the employees as to what this process is going to be. And I think just a little bit showing them the software ahead of that is just a tiny bit ahead. It should follow very closely behind.
Behind what?
Behind having a session behind the first step in Mr. Mulha's plan.
It can be.
Because I think that it would be an information overload to have it right, to have it before just a general informational educational session about what is this results-based budgeting, priority-based budgeting, because it is a mystery to a lot of people. What I learned, and it's funny, I took all these separate classes and presentations, but they all came together as far as this whole process begins and ends with transparency. You have to ask the employees, ask the constituents, involve everyone in this process. A lot of, I heard several different times from different municipalities that they have something called the Citizens Academy, where they begin by inviting people, the people who come a lot to speak about all different kinds of things. Invite them to come to an informational session, not a meeting where they speak to us, and correct me if I'm wrong, in a public comment, we're really not supposed to comment back.
Yeah.
So an informal way of having sort of a town hall type thing or some sort of educational thing where we can answer their questions directly and get the feedback immediately from these people who are super interested. Because you know if they come here and talk to us, they're talking to other people in the community too. And that's one of the best ways for us to get our word out of what we want to do and how we want to do this. We also need employees as champions for this whole process. So we need to really reach out to the employees. A few employees will step up and say, you know what, this is great. Wonderful, help us. And be part of the process with us. Because it is not us and just Dean and John. It has to be everybody together. So that's where it begins with transparency, by asking everybody. That, if we do that right, it will flow into the strategic plan. And that will be rewritten at the same time. And using, hopefully, a good software with cooperation of the employees and the department heads, we will find out exactly what everything costs.
Yes.
And if you have a strategic plan of the things you want to spend your money on, the things the constituents want to spend their money on, and you know what those things cost, then the strategic plan flows right into this budget. Because you know what the plans are, and you say, I want to do this, and it costs this, and I want to do this, and it costs this, and that then becomes your budget for the results that you want. And then you measure, you continue on and measure, did you meet the goals at the prices that were quoted to meet those goals? And you reevaluate, and you keep going, and you keep asking the employees, and you keep asking the constituents with the ultimate transparency of being able to just look. How are they doing on this? They said it was going to cost $80,000 a year to mow and manicure and remove the snow from the Civic Center. How are they doing? In July, let's look and see. How much has been spent so far on that particular thing? How are we doing on it? So we can, not just us monitoring, or the finance department monitoring, or the department heads, the constituents can go in and monitor that too. See, how are we doing?
Can I go after Dean? Thank you.
I'm almost done. So this will cover rewriting.
You're going on vacation, Bob. I don't want to.
You did this. This will cover
You sleep on the airplane.
rewriting a strategic plan, an effective budget as the process goes. After several years, it will get it right. It also would, in some way or another, I'm hoping, accomplish what a classification study would accomplish. Because if you're asking the employees what you do, what programs are utilizing you, that's going to help with figuring out if they're in the right place and whether they're compensated correctly for that. What else before I'm cut off here?
Right there it says the end.
No, it doesn't. I realize that there are employee concerns, but I think that as the process evolves, it will be easier to recognize employees who are stellar employees. And it'll be easy to reclassify and retrain people to do what they're really good at doing.
Yes.
It can make better use of downtime. We can cross-train people to do other things. I think that they're worried that personnel will be cut. I think any reductions in personnel would be done through attrition or through just moving people into better situations. So I think that after all that said, our next steps beyond what Mr. Muha is going to help us do in step one, which is the education piece and getting the word out and trying to set the stage, will be to enact some policies that will make all these things happen. A lot of the municipalities that we heard from said, you know, we don't just do this, it's our policy to do this. And if you set the stage that way, it's our policy for facilities to fill out, to log their time and what they do. I worked on the pool. I mowed the lawn. I did, you know, it doesn't take very long to say what you did while you were here today. And if those things happen, and if it's the policy that those things need to happen, then everything should be wonderful. Wanted to give a big overview of that, rather than getting down to the nitty-gritty of the software right away.
The software
so I
is a
hope-
really exciting thing.
It's an exciting thing. I think it's an exciting thing, too.
It's exciting for low-tech people.
But we're going to need to make it exciting for everybody else, too.
I think they'll be
Yes,
excited.
so we need to set the stage
Dean, what
for
were
it.
your thoughts?
Could we let Commissioner Max Bauer go?
Before
I'm
she
still
explodes.
gathering my thoughts.
Well,
Thank you for
I want to point out that step one is getting a grip. You have got to know how much money you have to spend. And you set your priorities, and when the money's gone, you're done. You do not spend any more. Now, when you set your priorities, after you set your priorities, you assign how much money you are going to spend on that priority, and the last step is taking a look at how to get the best value for the money that you have decided to spend on that particular program. So, we are not necessarily going to be doing everything that we are doing today because we don't have enough money, and we have a dam project and a bridge. So that's just an example. I mean, we really do not know everything that we've got ahead of us. Number one, we've got to, as Dr. Dan said, we need to get a grip. So that's all I had. And now Dean has to speak because I'm done.
I was hoping you would forget about me.
We're not going to forget about you.
Well, I have to have John's back here. We talked about this, and John has given this quite a bit of thought, but we talked about this afternoon, and the one thing that we don't want when we bring the department heads and the elected officials in and that we expand it is for the staff and for the elected officials, you, the board, to not be absolutely certain of what this process will be or what we're trying to accomplish. And I don't feel like I fully understand what this process will be with Mike and the GFOA. So I think that's why, we're proposing that let's not go to step one just yet without talking to Mike and really making sure that, because we're going to get I believe we have one opportunity here to do this right out of the gate. And we all want to do this right.
We do.
The first time. And, the departments and the employees, there's a lot of anxiety. They know what we're proposing, but they don't understand it. And I don't fully understand it. So I think we can resolve some of those concerns and we'll have a better process if we don't jump right into it. And I know we want to get going. I want to get
Can't
going
help
on it
it.
too.
Drive for 8 years.
So that's kind of, I have to have, I have to kind of support John in that. He took the lead on it, but that's really something that we want to be sure that we understand fully. And then we'll have, I think, a better rollout when we bring the departments in and the folks that are going to help us get this done, because John and I are not going to do it, and with your help, that's just not enough base. And to have the stakeholder involvement and the community involvement. Just a quick comment about one thing that I remember, there was I don't even know what community it was, but they thought that public safety was their top priority. Well, they did some study, some surveys, and they found out that it wasn't their top priority. So, I mean, that's key to this. Okay, enough about that. I'm going to take a different approach, but I want to kind of jump on what you're saying. We do have financial challenges here, but I have the utmost faith that we can solve those challenges, and shame on me as your finance director if I can't provide you with some ways that we can do that. Now, the mayor, his last name was Nutter, right?
Mayor Nutter. I loved him.
Well, as soon as he was sworn in, his staff told him that you have $1 billion less revenue to deal with than your budget has. So he was immediately faced with, well, what do I do? I can't operate at the same level because I don't have the revenues. Well, one of the sessions I went to, their assessment function had to be completely overhauled. And the reason they looked at that was because that was the main source of revenue that the city of Philadelphia has. With that was part of their, and the whole theme of the conference was resiliency and innovation. The theme that we need better technology. Bob's office needs the technology so that they can do, their workload is increasing. We can't add bodies to cover, the increasing workload. We have to work smarter. But we will be resilient here. We have to be. And we do have to live within our financial resources. We have to somehow fund the dam removal. We have to fund our pension benefit. I'll talk to you more about that at another time because you don't want to be here until midnight.
No, we don't.
But, and OPEB as well. But Philadelphia came back. You look at some of the other communities that were dealing with the same issues. Employee personnel costs were rising. Health insurance was rising. They probably, a lot of them have retirement contributions that they can't afford to make. But they've all found ways to deal with those issues, and they've come out stronger and better off. Now, Mayor Nutter, despite everything he's done, he's term limited.
I know.
Commissioner Maxbauer and I wanted to offer him a job.
And I want you to know, I went down to City Hall to see him. But that's another story.
Very nice City Hall, by the way.
Oh, wow.
But, the mayor did disclose one fact, too, though. They haven't solved all of their challenges. Their public education. They're way underfunding their education system. So you're always going to have challenges, but you have to be resilient. You have to be able to take that punch in the face, I guess, and come back or maybe get up to fight tomorrow. So yeah, we have challenges here, but we're gonna figure them out, and we're gonna be better off in the long term.
I thought it was a really positive experience.
I did too.
It was overall, we have taken a lot of hits in the last 6 months. A fair number, about 5 of us on this board have taken some pretty strong hits, and it was hurting, We're human, it hurts. What we've been through has hurt a lot. And I felt so much more energized after going to this. It was absolutely what I needed at the right time, and Dean's right. I mean, it was resiliency. And it did not escape me the city that we were in, as I spent a lot of time walking around Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell, and where there were men that stood up for a lot more things than we ever even thought of attempting here. And it was overall just a phenomenal experience, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to have gone. And the team that we sent there was just some of the best people I've ever worked with. And I know that it's a representation of all of the other good people that work here. And it's my hope that we all join together as a team and move forward with this. As far as appointing a committee, John, do you have an idea of how large of a committee you're thinking of, or what is interesting in, what would you be interested in seeing?
I would suggest we keep it small.
Do you want just a department heads, or are you interested in something else?
Well, I thought I understand that your commitments are pretty busy, but if we could have at least maybe 2 commissioners that we could draw in for meetings as we need to. I think certainly for the scheduling initially, so that you're understanding of that, but maybe there are times that staff could do stuff and then report back to either those 2 commissioners or to the full board here, but maybe if we could at least have 2 for the onset.
Oh, well, I don't think the commissioners are going to be an issue as much as the staff. We are asking time of our staff, and
I would like to at least have about 4 or 5 staff members.
Okay.
That I think we could.
Can I just leave that up to you?
Yeah, I was thinking we could probably figure that out. I don't know off the top of my head who. I would like to mention, though, when we talk about...
Dean is looking over at Wendy.
Bob,
Wendy's looking behind her.
when you talk about, you were talking about meetings and all that stuff, when they're on site, when GFOA is on site, they'll have 1 or 2 people here. They will be here for 2 or 3 days. So when you're talking about large meetings, you can break that down. Certainly, staff is probably going to be one of your larger ones, but you can, certainly I would suggest, considering, meetings for informing the public, other elected officials in our community, other stakeholders. So when you do that, think that, too, is that they're going to be here for probably 2 or 3 days, so there are, and there will probably be some additional tasks involved, but it's really an opportunity to kind of break that down a little bit more, so you're not having such, large meetings and so forth.
Okay. Well, can I just leave that up to you, and maybe you could contact me with your thoughts, and we can figure it out?
In terms of the...
Who you would like to have on it?
Well, I think if the commissioners, if you could...
Well, I mean for staff.
Staff, yes, we'll...
Just figure it out and...
Yeah, I can let you know.
Okay.
I'll make some invitations.
Yep, then we'll figure it out from there and know how many we have and where we'll go.
Did Dean have another comment? He did.
Okay.
Just one. I was happy to see that we weren't the only community that were dealing with financial issues.
No, we're
Man,
not.
we had a lot of company.
Yes, we did.
You know what was interesting too was how unilaterally almost everyone was hit in 2009, roughly. And it was interesting hearing how different groups dealt with that. I mean, we saw a significant drop in tax revenue, obviously, property tax revenue, but it hit large cities and counties in ways that we can't even imagine. And that was really interesting to see how people were in different stages from dealing with the recession. And I thought that was interesting.
I think it was pretty common, though, that they were prioritizing services.
You bet.
They were looking at ways to be more innovative, to be able to provide, I mean, because you can't just not provide services. You do have to define how those services change over time, but every municipality, I mean, one of the sessions I attended was a government in Canada, and I was hoping Jim would have stayed, but they were dealing with their road issue, and they did something similar to what our road commission had done. They identified how much money they had to get their road system up to speed, so to speak, and they're not tackling it all at once, but that's their top priority, and they're dedicating the resources to get it done. So
There was a nice feeling of that. Also, pools were a common theme there, interestingly enough. Bob?
Yeah, a couple last comments that I want to make. And speaking for myself, I don't know if I'm speaking for the board, but whenever we do mention of, we know what kind of financial condition we're in and looking at, we're not blaming you by any means whatsoever. I think part of it is we're trying to make sure the public's aware that we know that it's in the minds of us that we can't just go out and do whatever we want because we have that responsibility to take care of. And also, and this will make it sound like we're talking out of both sides of our mouth, but to solve this crisis, you're going to have to spend money.
Yeah, that's right.
So, you'll hear, while we're in such financial difficulty that you're going to spend X amount of dollars on this, why does that make sense? It does make sense when you look at the end result of it. So, for the public that's watching, if anybody is still at this point, some are going on vacation soon.
Going on vacation.
But we're gonna have to spend money to get this system to do it right, and we're gonna stumble along the way. I mean, you want to get the rollout as good as you can, but I mean, it'd be foolish for us to sit here and think that every step and move we make is going to be the right one. I'll be the first to tell you, every once in a while I do make a wrong move. So
Somebody mark down the date.
So, I just wanted to throw a couple of those comments out to at least get the public thinking too that, it's more than just us going along. So.
One of the things that Mayor Nutter did say is that his staff was vilified when they started this process. And, but he told his staff, you're here to do the right thing. And for what it's worth, I really do believe that this board has got the backbone to do the right thing. And I think we demonstrated when we looked way ahead, when Mr. Cooney said, you know what, I want to work in the cloud. I do not want to stand in court and say, and I'm putting words in his mouth, Your Honor, the wheel is spinning, while he's trying to look up stuff on his computer. So I'm excited about this, and I will try to slow myself down.
That's what was interesting, though. It was staff that were vilified over and over again in the stories, not the elected officials. It was a unique and interesting perspective to be able to be in that. I really enjoyed it. And I know that we have a lot of staff that are not happy right now, and for what it's worth, it bothers me every single day. But I do believe that when you finally get to see the system and what it does and how it's changed the lives of thousands of government staff people around the country for the better, they're going to understand exactly where we were going and hopefully join our team. That's the plan. Okay, well, we will be in touch with John to work on the committee. And I've never felt better about being a part of something in my life than I do with this. Sonny.
I guess the only comment, and I'm certainly supportive of moving forward with this new concept, but I think we have to be realistic about what our expectations are about how soon we can make it happen.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard people talk tonight about the 2016 budget.
No,
Well,
I didn't say that for this.
Because there's no way that we're going to
It's roughly a
talk
6-year
about-
process was the average of the communities that presented.
So, but that's the point. When we talk about making the change, we need to be realistic about what our expectations are. This is a 5-year program, to get there by the time we can possibly get it implemented and get it accepted. So we need to remember that even though we're all excited right now about making this change, we still have a 2016 budget that we need to get adopted in a matter of the next about 4 months.
And we will.
But if our mindset is already to the ideas of what the citizens choose, that should be a priority for us when even setting the 2016 budget.
Just to have in the back of our mind.
Just to have it there, to have the idea that the staff is going to get the technology that they need to be more efficient and do a better, have it better. I think it's changing the mindset, and that's where the excitement comes in at. But it is by no means, it's a marathon. It's not a 5K or a 10K or a half marathon, it's a marathon. And there isn't a finish line. But at every single step of the way, there's a way to manage the results that you've gotten and what didn't work. And so you try on something that didn't work. What did work, you move forward. And I think that it is a time whose idea has come.
Idea whose time has come?
Yeah. I'm going on vacation with Bob, so.
Bob's going like, I got a plane to catch.
What we're doing here is really. Bob and our nachos?
No. You're distracted.
I just am thrilled to have been able to be a part of it, and I hope that other people can be excited with it too. And I never thought I'd be excited about a budget, so there you go.
Can I say to John that I would like to be on the committee? Please.
I do that.
What, you decide?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm the chair of RMNA. That's why I have it. And I will contact commissioners after we find out about staff.
Okay.
That's why I will be in touch with John, and then we will go from there. We may want to have all commissioners that weren't at the conference, and that's a possibility. So I'm going to wait until we see what John's ideas are with the staff, and then we'll decide from there. But I think that the commissioners are at the very bottom of the heap on this. I think the staff need to be at the top with the citizens, and then we'll see where we go from there. And John is a much more proven leader, first of all, and we will all be gone when this process is in its implementation, and John won't, unless if he's running away somewhere I don't know. So it's important that it's framed by people that are not elected every 2 years. This is an entirely new way of running this government,
That's why I
and
said
it's
we need
not
to
us.
enact the policies that will ensure that it will continue.
We just guide it, but this is owned by the staff and the citizens, not by this Board of Commissioners.
Exactly.
Okay, well, once again, thank you, John and Dean.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you both for going.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's easy to get around a city when you have a planner with
That's true.
Isn't that the truth?
Easy to
Okay.
find your way.
Second public comment? Anyone? John? Oh, Mr. Merrick.
Oh.
He sat around.
Bob going on vacation yet?
Ah!
Give him a minute and a half.
Try to keep it really short. Andy Merrick, 2875 East Railroad Avenue. I want to say there's three things to keep in mind. You've got enthusiasm, you've got to set expectations, and you got to have follow-through. Don't let your enthusiasm ruin the plan. Don't race into it too fast because you haven't got the foundation set up that you need. You need the plan so you can have the follow-through, so you can maintain your enthusiasm. It's exciting that we're going to find out where our money is going. The transparency is phenomenal. The fact that any of you at 3 o'clock in the morning when you can't sleep, when you're on vacation, Bob, can go on your computer and see where money is being spent and how it's being done. But don't race into it until you've got a good plan and you know you're going to follow through with it. Because it's going to take some follow-through.
Like putting a planner in charge of it, maybe?
That might be a good idea.
That's the plan.
2 minutes, 11 seconds, 10, 9. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? We will close public comment. Any commissioner committee reports? Bob?
I got one. I went to the veterans meeting there, that I'm on the Grand Traverse Veterans Coalition or group. And just to give everyone there a heads up, they are going to be coming, and to Dean too, the heads up, they're going to be asking for some staffing increase there. They had a person is retiring, and to get qualified to do a lot of the services there takes a long time. So right now they have a 9-day wait list to make an appointment, and their big fear is it's going to increase to over 30. But also along there, they have some plans on trying to add an additional member to be able to get even more out into the community. So what they do is a real valuable service out there to help the veterans. And as the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency keeps ramping up and gets the information out about what you can qualify for, they're coming to these local veterans agencies. So they're going to need the help. So just a heads up that you'll be seeing that proposal. And obviously, since I'm a veteran and on that board, I will be fighting for that. But just keep that in mind. So. And also, while we were talking there, Mitch, if you're still up, he wanted me to say that Kingsley is very affordable for housing. So.
That is true.
It's got the whole gamut.
That, I know. It's a great little village. Okay.
Sunny.
At Long Lake Township's meeting last night, they passed a letter of intent to notify Grand Traverse County Rural Fire of their possible withdrawal from the rural fire. They will have 6 months basically to, negotiate an agreement with rural fire. It's based strictly on finance. The long and the short of it is because of Long Lake Township's value, population, and run count, they are paying what they believe to be a sizable percentage of the entire rural fire budget, and in an unequal share, if you will. Hopefully they can get through this. The problem is the intergovernmental agreement that's in place requires that they provide in writing 6 months prior to the end of the year a letter of intent to withdraw. It was a pretty big room full of people. Not too many people had much to say. It was kind of unfortunate. They started their meeting and then they went into a closed session with their attorney in regard to the possible withdrawal from rural fire. That closed session lasted about 45 to 50 minutes while the rest of us all sat in the other room. I don't know why the closed session wasn't held before or after or somewhere other than in the middle of the meeting while everyone sat there, but that's the way they chose to do it. So, I'm hoping that they can come out with a new agreement. We were at this point, when I was still at Long Lake Township a number of years ago. about the time the metro and the rural split. It tells you, it gives you an idea how long I've been around, but at that particular point, Long Lake Township was paying like 86% of the entire rural budget because it was based solely on SEV. And then I was part of a group that, you know, suggested a formula, whereas you took SEV, population, and run count to create the amount that you have. And that's worked out fairly well. You know, that being said, even with the amount that they're paying rural fire right now, their fire costs is about $32 per capita. Chuck will sit back here in the corner and tell you $32 a piece is pretty damn cheap fire protection. You know, so, you know, it's easy to sit here and say we're paying a misproportionate share of the rural fire budget, but when you look at it that you're paying $32 per person to provide fire protection, that's pretty damn cheap fire protection. You know, so you know, there's going to be a great deal more discussion, and I just thought I would, you know, let you know that discussion is happening. Realistically, my concern is if Long Lake Township pulls out of rural fire, whether or not rural fire can continue to survive. You know, not only for the state, the townships that have stations, but those townships that depend on stations to be provided by the others.
Green Lake maybe next.
Well, yeah, you know, and that's where you're at. But realistically, because of the amount of funding to the rural system, if you will, that's being funded by Long Lake Township, if they pull out, I would really question whether or not the entity that is Grand Traverse Rural Fire, as we know it, can continue to survive.
I just wanted to mention that Networks Northwest presented their audit at Monday night's meeting, and it is my job to pass that audit on to our finance director, and it's either in my car or upstairs in my mailbox, and I will get it to you. And the other thing I wanted to mention was the Biederman Foundation, as you all have heard, has graciously donated $20,000 to fix the historic clock. Mr. Biederman would like to present the check to the Grand Traverse County Board at our Ways and Means Committee. I was asked to accept the check simply because I'm chairman of the board, but I really didn't do anything. Elisa Kropa is on that historic clock committee. I would like her to accept the check. And as you have all heard her tonight talk incessantly about history in Philadelphia, as she was talking about Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell.
Only time I used my college degree.
This is up her bailiwick. So, but he would like to be on special orders of business so that he is at the beginning of the meeting. So if our Ways and Means chairman could make sure that that is on the agenda. Thank you very much.
I have to ask the boss, Chris Kramer. If she says yes, I'll say yes.
Okay.
Is there any other say? Well, I want to thank everyone for bearing with us combining public health and safety, RM&A, and a special meeting for GFOA so that Dr. Bob can also go away and not miss at least our updates. So we tried to schedule a special meeting and we couldn't. So thanks for bearing with us for putting 3 meetings in one. And with that, we are adjourned.
Oh, 9:15. I actually was hopeful that we might get out of here a little earlier than 9:15.
I figured it was going to be